It's about time to start.
To this like fusion.
Andrew.
They all have their own.
Sorry.
Well, that's good.
All right. All right. So welcome to the investing group. We have kind of a special meeting today because we're meeting in the federal room of a Union League club. It's Memorial Day, so due to staffing issues and so forth, we're here. But we'll see how this goes. We got an upgrade with the new equipment. We'll see how the stream turns out. And also, just a disclaimer to start everything off. This is not financial advice, anything we discuss here. So, we're not liable for any of this. And by coming here, you agree to be recorded and photographed and whatnot. So that's that. Now, no one can sue us. All right. So yeah, let's dive into it now. Actually, let's start by going around the room and just introducing ourselves. I mean, I know all of you, but not everyone knows everyone. So we can start with Mario, and then we'll just go this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Mario Sanchez. My background is in architecture, so not finance or investment related at all, but I'm here to learn, and I support the image of Eric and Victor as the founders of this group. Yeah, that's pretty much me.
All right, Andrew.
I'm Andrew Bearer. I'm a retired medical school professor and healthcare executive, former CEO. And I'm a member of the Union League Club, and Eric and I were in the same networking group, and he invited me to come. So I'm glad to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed. I've been involved with the Union League since its inception.
Union League.
Well, Union League and the investing group. I correlate the two together. But I know just to be clear, we're separate entities, But I'm a USC graduate, class of 2024. Since graduating, I've been more into investing. I have my own healthcare startup, and starting this fall, I'll be going back to law school. So that's me.
My name is Al. I've been coming to these meetings since the inception as well. Quite like it. I think there's a lot of value here, a lot of really smart people in this room, a lot of good ideas.
Hey everyone, I'm Quinn. I just graduated from UIC with bachelor's in science of finance a couple of weeks ago. Been involved with the investing group since day one as well, and very involved in the portfolio management team, kind of the model that is being followed here in the early days of TIG. But I'm very excited for another productive day of conversation. The market's been moving a lot. There's a lot that's coming up. We got a 4-day week, and I'm very excited to hit the ground running tomorrow at 8:30. So let's talk about some good stuff. Also, I'm going to be taking photos today. I have a camera, so don't be alarmed, just candid shots.
My name is Victor Sanchez, one of the co-founders of the investing group here at the Union League. So I've known Eric a long time. I've worked in finance for about a decade now. I think we just wanted to create an environment where we can share ideas and get a better understanding of this technological shift that we're going through and who the winners and losers are of this new tech. In equity markets. So happy to hear everyone's ideas this afternoon.
Hi everyone, I'm Seamus. I'm just finishing up my first year at UIC. I was an analyst for PMT's energy sector last semester. And this is my second meeting here at TIG, and I'm excited to be here and more involved going forward.
Hello everyone, my name's Dash. I just graduated from UIC with a bachelor's in finance with Quinn. And I've been just recently took a class on high frequency trading, and I also joined PMT last semester. I really liked it, and I met with IREN at an alumni night, and we were talking about this, and it seemed like a really good way to learn more. And now that I've already taken high frequency trading, I feel like I've gone into the specifics of trading, but not really. I still haven't really gone into the more general aspects, and I think it's a good way to learn more about that.
Hey everyone, my name is Grant Tubman. I'm a club member, and I come to the meetings because I work in the legal field, and I'm really interested in how policy affects the markets and politics.
Awesome. Hey everyone, my name is Arav Soni and I'm a rising senior majoring in finance at UIC. And this is my first meeting for the investing group and I'm looking forward to getting the most out of it. Bye now.
Hi everyone, my name is Mohammed. Yes, we are brothers. So it's hopefully not too confusing for everyone. I'm 20. I got into investing a little bit before Liberation Day. So it's been a roller coaster ever since. But been to these meetings a few times now. Definitely interesting to hear everyone's perspective and stuff. And I will be also recording the meeting to summarize this afterwards. And that'll be emailed out to you and you can look back on it.
My name is Jose. This is my first time attending the meeting. I recently also graduated from UIC with an undergrad in finance. I'm just excited to be here, just excited to learn. And it seems like a good opportunity to be around professional and intelligent individuals.
My name is Nick Simpson. Together with Victor and also John, who's not here, we started the investing group here. And it's kind of like built on the framework of portfolio management team, which is UIC's investment club, which I was a co-founder of and served as the president the first 2 years. And so we're just taking some of those concepts. It's more open discussion oriented. And then we're just seeing where it goes. As for me, I am a full-time day trader. Been doing it for over a decade. I also have private investments in SpaceX and Anduril, so I'm excited about the SpaceX IPO. And I do some long-term investing as well, so I'm just about all the markets in general. And I'm moderating these discussions, but kind of just letting everyone, talk and just we'll see how it plays out. And then, yeah, we'll get the meetings recorded and then we'll get a nice summary emailed out to everybody. All right, so let's dive in. Everyone's ready? Yep. All right. First thing, I mean, it's not as big of a topic as it has been recently, but the Iran war, the latest updates. Who's still focusing on the Iran headlines? Anyone? That's really down. All right, Grant, do you want to go?
Yeah, I had a question about this.
Okay.
So, and maybe you can ask Claude as well. I saw that right after President Trump visited China, that Putin was also in China, but I feel like it wasn't really reported on in the Western media. So I was very curious if people think that like Putin and Russia being an oil, having a lot of oil, if that had anything to do with it, and whether or not the U.S. is really in control of negotiations, or like Iran or China are trying to like prolong the war because they think they have some ulterior motive.
So China visits the next topic, but we can sort of like, I mean, they're all kind of tied in.
Yeah. I mean, I was just curious because
So-
like with the Iran war, like, I mean, a lot of people were saying that that's the reason that Trump went to China. We don't know if that's true or not.
Probably
Nobody knows.
factored in.
There was also reports that allegedly China was selling weapons to Iran. That was later denied, but who knows how true that is. But I was just, it was interesting that the Russian president was in China right after. And again, I don't know if that was even reported on in Western media. I have no idea.
If I can jump in, I think that was from a Chinese standpoint, like neutrality. Yes, we met with Western leaders, but yes, we also met with the Kremlin to kind of keep a balance on their positioning and to pander to their country.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Well, I pay attention. I always watch BBC World News, which you can watch on WTTW, because they did cover a lot of, it was the only news network that covered Putin's visit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of analysis that, Putin is making money from selling oil at a higher price to help, fund his economy, including the war against Ukraine. And so I think that the person who said, China doesn't want to just have a profile meeting with America, they want to show that they're truly independent, meeting with Russia, and they need eventually a source for oil. They have a lot of reserves, but they're going to need another source for oil, and Russia sees them as a high-paying customer.
All right, so just for some background, yes, Putin visited China, not the same time as Trump, so that President Xi of China met with Trump and then met with Putin. So, all right, so they're kind of, all right, doing these little meets with each country here. Okay, let's see. Putin and Xi oversaw the signing of more than 40 cooperation agreements in areas such as trade, technology, and media exchanges, stressed their growing trade, particularly in oil and gas, declared themselves aligned on international relations. Okay. Symbolically to the timing, says Claude, Beijing arranged the Putin-Xi talks for May 20th. Okay, it carries the meaning of I love you in Chinese. Interesting. All right, so symbolism. So yeah, obviously Russia and China are pretty close together. They're very tied in. And then let's see. All right, China and Russia took aim at Trump's plans for the $175 billion Golden Dome defense system. Okay, Trump was there, yeah, for, to negotiate some deals. But let's go back up because we got to factor in Iran to this. And then we can get back to the China meeting. So I think, I think the US and Iran have been having talks and they've been negotiating. And then there have been some like headlines that have come out where it's like, oh, they reached a deal, they haven't reached a deal. And then Trump's kind of floated like the whole, like, we're moving towards it, So it seems like it's not 100% like set in stone. There's a deal for a ceasefire and it's outlined yet. I think it's getting there because the market has been rallying on all this. And actually the futures, which traded today, were up almost 1%. The S&P 500 futures, even though, today is a market close day because of Memorial Day. So it's a sign that the market seems to be overall bullish and pricing this in, even if we're not 100% there yet. The market is acting like it's basically there. So what do you guys think about this? Is the market right about this? Or do you think fighting is just going to start up again? Does anyone want to do a little scenario analysis, or should we ask Claude? Al, did you have something?
Somebody else has something to say. I think Claude might be
the. I'll pitch in a little bit here. I think the peace deal that the U.S. offered 60 days is very flexible to the U.S. It allows them to back out at any time, even if signed. And even Trump was posting I think yesterday about how we have this deal almost done. And then today he was posting about how, okay, let's take a step back. Let's evaluate the terms of this deal, make sure it's right. I think he's facing pushback from some Republicans in Congress about how this deal is a little bit too loose for Iran because they want to kind of deplete them of everything. And then there's the Benjamin Netanyahu factor as well in Israel. And then, I don't know. I don't know if this deal will come through.
Right. So yeah, the proposed deal has a 60-day ceasefire extension during which the Strait of Hormuz is reopened, which means, things can pass through it, etc. Let's see. Few sticking points remain. Iran has resisted sending enriched uranium abroad as the U.S. has demanded. State-linked Iranian media have insisted that a potential document to end the war includes no commitment to hand over stockpiles and postpone nuclear negotiations until after the war ends. Okay, so there's still some disagreement on that stuff. All right. I think that's about where we're at with Iran. It's not like the main headline in the news anymore, at least here. So should we move on more into the China thing? Because that's a big topic I really wanted to focus on. Okay. And some things did come out of that.
I think oil prices are down below $100 per barrel now.
Yeah, they went back down. Crude went back down to like low 90s. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Trump and bunch of big company CEOs went to China. Trump's first trip to China since 2017. All right. Yeah, and so they met with Xi, let's see, to negotiate some stuff. Sounds like, all right. White House said China would purchase at least 17 billion per year of US agricultural products and would make an initial purchase of 200 American-made Boeing aircraft. Worth flagging the soft spots here, given your interest in scrutinizing claims. The White House fact sheet did not provide further details on the 200 Boeing aircraft. Okay, so just kind of like, sort of like a handshake agreement, I guess, but probably valid. Taiwan is a friction point. According to Chinese state media, Xi warned Trump in Thursday's meeting of possible clashes and even conflicts if the Taiwan issue isn't handled properly. Standard Beijing red line, yeah. Okay, so there's some stuff about Taiwan there. Let's see, I want to dive in. I think they came away though, some deals like, okay, so yeah, NVIDIA, Jensen Huang came and trip with Trump joining Elon, etc. Late addition to it, but and I think they came away saying that NVIDIA would start selling some of its GPUs to China. Let's see what Claude says on this. Okay. Yeah, so Trump announced back in December that the US would allow NVIDIA to sell the Hoppers H200 chips. For context, Hoppers are kind of what the current LLMs are trained on mostly. And there's still the whole next generation of Blackwell GPUs that are way stronger than Hoppers that are just starting to scale up, which we haven't really seen much of except for on Claude Mythos, which has not been released yet because of security concerns, because it's so powerful. And then the Rubens after that. So we're still, so NVIDIA wants to sell current gen chips to China. You know, I know there's some backlash about that, but it doesn't sound like they don't want to sell like the next gen stuff, the really, really advanced stuff to them. So they're trying to keep some edge here. But with the question, you know, we talked about the super microcomputer scandal, SMCI, a few meetings back where they were smuggling Blackwell GPUs, which is the next gen, into China. So it's like, well, one way or another, maybe it just happens anyway. Okay, so going into the summit, yeah, the sales were authorized already. Okay. All right, sounds like. Okay, so it wasn't like totally decided, but it seems like that's what they want to happen, if this is right. Let me see here.
Yeah, I'm reading here that there was like no progress made on those H200 chips.
Talk about that. Okay, so it's not like totally done thing.
So, Eric, I have a question. Do you think that it was just by chance or like sentimental that Jensen Huang was a late add to the trip? Because like no one knew he was going to come till basically like, and he like, do you think that was done on purpose? And considering he's Taiwanese as well, and Taiwan was a big theme of the meeting.
I wouldn't read too much into that. I wonder though why he was left off if like all the other big CEOs were on there, you know?
Right, and then it was announced at the last minute that he was coming.
Yeah, so who knows? But the bottom line is the result's the same. He went, you know? But yeah, there might be some more to that. And my computer is kind of freezing up right now, so.
Do you think that China can get the next generation chips without having to buy them or make a deal?
Well,
you know, through espionage,
or
through
yes.
you know, a gradual takeover of Taiwan.
Right. So so you weren't at this meeting, but maybe last month, Super Microcomputer, which they do. They work with NVIDIA on sort of installing their GPUs and stuff. They got caught, or there's an executive, a contractor, and an employee. They apparently conspired to sell something billion worth, I think, right, of Blackwell GPUs, which is the next gen GPUs that NVIDIA probably would never authorize to sell to China right now themselves. but they got caught doing that and they smuggled it, I think, through Southeast Asia, through a bunch of these like different entities to get it there. And so SMCI stock, my stuff is freezing up. Let's see. Might have to
35 right now.
Supermicro's 35, yeah. So what I wanted to do was pull up a chart. I'm gonna restart. Restore. All right, so SMCI. So yeah, when that news came out, it crashed. So it crashed from like 30 down to like 20, just sub 29. So it was like a 30-something% crash. We actually dived into it though, and we determined, you know, you think about it. So we dig into the financials a bit and looking at the basic metrics, low PE, not too much debt, good growth rate. I mean, good sales, everything's pretty solid financially. I mean, they're well capitalized, like not much more downside from that perspective. And then you think about the whole AI tailwinds and just how essential it is for every AI infrastructure company. We figure, well, you know, they're obviously shady. They've been investigated for like, I think, fraud, like blatantly just fabricating, like messing with their accounting and stuff, but then they got off from that. Like they've been in hot water many times, but we figured, you know what? It's just something that they'll probably just get over, and we wouldn't be shocked if they just tried doing it again because there's so much incentive. And from a market perspective, I wouldn't say that's necessarily bearish. Now, me personally, I don't own the stock. Mario does though, right?
I do,
You're
yeah.
pretty bullish on that thesis.
I am. I was bullish before this smuggling scandal. Still pretty bullish, mainly because of the relationship between the execs, between NVIDIA and the SMCI group.
Right.
So I took that kind of scandal as a good opportunity to buy more of the stock, and it's been performing relatively well since then. So it was a good hedge.
Yeah, and also SMCI's CEO is good friends with Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, and it makes you wonder though how much, like, were they aware? Was Jensen Huang aware? Maybe it was like some, you know, wing type thing. Who knows? We'll never know. But there's definitely a lot of incentive to smuggle stuff to China, like next gen chips. So that will be something to keep an eye on, because if they get a hold of this stuff, they can reverse engineer it and, you know, do their own version. And it seems like they've already got some. So we'll see how that plays out.
I'm just curious. So do you think the problem is that once they get it and reverse engineer it, they're already still behind? Is that like the issue of why they haven't done it yet? Like they're always one generation behind, because like by the time they're you know, getting the newest chip, I mean, like that's probably what, like at least a few months of runway.
I've seen some chatter on Twitter about like, you know, people kind of saying that, you know, the US is still going to be ahead because of just they're the ones, or with NVIDIA at least, they're at the leading edge of this.
Yeah.
And then if you think about the scaling curves, it's exponential, and it's getting more exponential. If you buy into Leopold Aschenbrenner's whole situational awareness manifesto, which me and Al have since the last year, over a year or so, then yeah, it's going to get crazier, and actually having any edge in an exponential scaling curve, I mean, that's going to be exacerbated. I believe it's still, I mean, China's a strong number two, but they're not like quite right at the level of where we are. But no, they're very competitive with us, and the US definitely feels the heat of it. And I'm sure there's going to be more incidents like this. You know, there's just so much money involved and so much need for compute that it's just going to happen again and again, you know. Any other thoughts on this China trip?
Yeah, I had a question. So when it comes to Taiwan, my understanding is that the US has been selling military weapons to Taiwan. And so that was basically China wants the US to stop supplying Taiwan with weapons. But that on the flip side, Iran, China's also been selling weapons to Iran. So I'm curious if you think that some type of deal will be reached where it's like US will stop selling to Taiwan and China will stop selling to Iran. Or stop Iran. If that could be in the playbook. Because I think that they're both like selling weapons to adversaries at some point.
Right.
And interesting enough, so I was in a city called Xiamen, and there's a little island called Kinmen in English, and that little island is actually the reason Taiwan is independent in the first place. But it's like 2 miles away from Xiamen, which is mainland. So I went over there and they told me they built a bridge halfway. And they did a whole huge ceremony about how it's going to be open because that would be the first island they would need to take to eventually take mainland Taiwan.
Interesting.
And they already built a bridge halfway allegedly. So I thought that was just interesting that, I mean, you wouldn't read about it in the paper at all, but that was just something that I picked up.
Right. That's an interesting, I mean, Taiwan has always been sort of a big point of contention. Like I'm, I guess by ethnicity half Taiwanese, although I'm not really too dialed into it, but for years ever since, Taiwan's always been under dispute as like an independent country or not. Some organizations recognize it, some don't. Even in the Olympics, they've competed as like Chinese Taipei, which is kind of bizarre because it's just like Taipei is just the name of their largest city. And so it's just a way to get around this whole like issue about, what to like appease China within whatever organization they participate in, but also it's sort of, they just work around these things with a lot of clever wording. But yeah, it's been under contention for a while. Taiwan though, I mean, they have their own currency, they have their own like government different than how China runs things. And so, and they're obviously connected with the US, and Taiwan is a huge, I mean, Taiwan's like the center of like the semiconductor production. So they're very important. They're very important for the US economy, the world economy, and for AI. And of course, China would like to own that, why wouldn't they? But the US protects Taiwan militarily. So it's sort of this interesting long-term stalemate that's been around for decades. And so I'm sort of like, I don't know, on one hand, I've just been hearing this for forever, like since I was born, like, and so I'm just kind of like, whatever, but I don't know, maybe this time is different. I'm not too sure, but I think that China, they'll do their posturing that they do, but again, I don't think, at least, I don't expect any World War III type situation to break out anytime soon. But as for the nuclear weapons selling, like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, that's just up to them to figure out. But it's just a game of chicken, it sounds like, So I don't have any thoughts, but I would say that I don't see realistically, and we can look up the odds of this, like at least conflict-wise, I just don't see a conflict.
A military conflict, you mean?
China over Taiwan, yeah, or
there
that
could be
China
the-
invades Taiwan.
there
We
could
can
be
look
an
at the
economic
money.
conflict.
I think if China invades, for sure, we'll protect them. I mean, we've been helping each other so long, and I don't know, it's in our favor to, like.
I don't think China would need
I
to
don't
invade them
think they
because
need
they could just steal the technology, which is cheaper than going to war. And that's what I see them doing, is trying to find ways to steal the technology or replicate it.
Right.
And wait out the population of Taiwan, which is not like 90% against the Chinese, it's more 50-50.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think they would do a military invasion. I think that they're trying to do like rigging local elections. One of the things that I always found interesting is like, it's really easy for Taiwanese to go to mainland China, but it's basically impossible for mainlanders to go to Taiwan. And I think that they did that because they knew that there was like tourism was part of Taiwan's economy, so they just restricted mainlanders from going to Taiwan. So mainlanders can't go to Taiwan unless they go with the tour group, and even that's restricted now. So why are people able to travel one way but not the other? So they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's not like a military mission, but they do like more political or social controls.
Well, think about the whole, like, you know, way back in the day with the Berlin Wall and like all the, you know, the communist, it's like people cannot cross the wall and they would have to defect and you know, sneak out in some coordinated thing. So it's really, that sounds like elements of that, you know, they don't want.
But right now, I think when they do public opinion polls, it's the younger Taiwanese who are more pro mainland China, and it's the older people who are dying off.
Yeah.
So that's why that's part of the reason I think that China could just wait for these, you know, older people to die off, because the younger people want to have, you know, be united with China, that they see China as being, you know, a world leader politically and economically, and Taiwan is never going to be a world leader.
That's a good point. I mean, and again, sort of like how Russia, there's, you know, they talk about Russia meddling with our elections, who knows, probably. But China, you know, they'll probably play this long-term propaganda type game, or, you know, and I don't, as far as actually moving the needle on that, it depends. Yeah, it depends on who's in power and what the incentives are. I think there's definitely going to be a lot of incentives floated by the US to like not reunify with China. But you are right that there's a big divide, and it's not as like one-sided as you would think. It's very split. It's almost like how don't they vote on like statehood for Puerto Rico here and there, and it's always pretty split. But I think recently they actually voted for it. But I don't think anything's going to happen with that, just based on how it's designed. But you know, so Taiwan's kind of like, yeah, it's very divided among that. So we'll see if, again, they age into it and they keep the same thoughts on that. But yeah, it's a long-term thing. As for the immediate term, well, if we go back to this, we're just going to talk about invasion. I mean, so prediction markets are not the be-all, end-all, but I think it's a reasonable source to use just for gauging opinions, because people are actually putting their money at risk. And once they put their money at risk, they're more likely to do all the research. And so right now, the odds are pretty low. You know, by June 30th, 1%. By the end of 2026, 7%.
Can you click on the 2026 one?
Yeah, and see if any other.
I think it's gone down quite a bit.
Yeah. So it started off, wow, it was like close to like, it was over 40% when it opened, and then it's just been.
When did it open? Did it open?
On New Year's, I think, right?
That was late last year, kind of in the fall, it looks like. Start of September. Yeah, so I think it's gonna settle around here. I don't know.
And then Eric, the only other thing that I would want to ask about Trump's China visit was if you think that they discussed the car market at all, because I know that China has like all of these cars, that they have all these brands, and I assume they eventually want to sell to the US, and I know there have been scandals with them trying to sell to Canada and Mexico, so I'm just curious if that
I think there are some in Mexico now, right?
Yeah, I think they have.
Yeah.
I think they have BYD in Mexico.
Interesting.
I was just curious if that made headlines at all.
Claude says cars were very much in the air. More accurate framing is that autos were a major pre-summit anxiety rather than confirmed agenda item. Okay. U.S. auto industry and a bipartisan bloc in Congress were alarmed that Trump might trade away market access to Chinese EVs in exchange for wins elsewhere. Okay. 120 lawmakers had to beg Trump to keep the tariffs. They still weren't sure he'd listen. Okay, so it's kind of like worry beforehand. In the actual post-summit readouts, okay, so they had the aircraft thing with Boeing. Yes. Okay. unresolved chip in Taiwan issues, no specific confirmed auto or EV agreement coming out of those talks. So did they cut a cars deal? No, but I'm sure there may have been discussion about it. So it seems like nothing really officially came out of that.
I feel like it's only a matter of time before these Chinese EVs enter like the US market.
Right.
I just look at like, I think it was like GM where they like shuttered their EV program. So it's like, to me, it's like these US companies are just like built to fail over the next decade or two. Like, I just don't understand how you pivot away from like what the future of, you know, vehicles are and what's required for autonomous vehicles as well. So, I mean, I think it'll end up being a need more than just letting them in for any other reason other than like we actually just need that technology here.
I don't know. I mean, I think that that's optimistic because I think that like the US, a lot of these like Ford, GM, why would they ever want Chinese cars?
Well, that's why I'm very bearish on GM because they scrapped their EV program. Like, I don't understand how you're a relevant auto manufacturer, you know, a decade or 2 decades from now, if your whole premise is still built off of gas-powered vehicles.
That depends on whether you're bearish or bullish on EVs.
That's fair. Well, all right, that's fair. I am very bullish on EVs. I'm bullish on autonomous driving. I'm very bearish on.
Wait, you don't need an EV to be autonomous driving. Those are 2 separate things, right?
No,
Okay.
but they seem to go pretty hand in hand right now. I think.
Yeah, I mean the Waymos are all EVs.
Yeah, similar to Teslas. So.
Can you?
But does Elon Musk have enough influence? Because if Chinese EVs come in, that might cause his EVs to sort of price crash.
Yeah.
And does he have this sort of influence with Trump anymore?
I don't think he would mind it because I think competition is healthy for any industry. And I think that's how Musk would look at it, where he's like, I need other competitors in my space that are going to normalize, you know, electric vehicles, that are going to normalize autonomous driving. Like, it can't be one company that does it on their own.
But didn't he try to stop GE and Ford from getting into the market? I thought he was like a main pusher, you know, main energizer to stop.
I'll add to this.
They have Teslas in China, so.
Yeah, also after I saw this thing that Elon did, and I just checked on ChatGPT. So the visit was on May 14th, right? They all went there. On May 18th, Elon said on some video conference that he's saying 5 years from now, and certainly 10 years from now, probably 90% of all distance driven will be driven by AI in a self-driving car, implying EV. And I mean, we can't directly say this, but it makes me kind of think that he's sort of seeing the pragmatic edge of where, yeah, it's all going to be EV. And the Chinese market for EV is insane. I don't think that everybody will be driving a Tesla in the US. I think he's realizing that, yeah, it's probably going to be a bunch of Chinese cars here that are EVs.
That makes sense. That's why he's kind of focusing on SpaceX right now and all that, you know. I think that's his end goal, you know. I don't think Tesla is in the long run, maybe not, but SpaceX is where his eyes are at. You know, where
He's so sure about like this kind of AI electric car future that he was okay with them getting rid of the subsidies for first time EV buyers.
And if you believe his book, his philosophy is just trying to make it better for everybody and make it more green and everything. And he puts that ahead of like American companies being the one that does that. So might add to that thesis.
So Elon tends to take the approach in his businesses to open source things or let the competition join in, because when they're trying to do like an innovative thing, you know, the more participants, the more companies participating in that new like innovative industry wave, the better for that wave turning out to work, you know. So when he made, I think they were charging for the Teslas, charging stations, they made those open source so others could use it, you know. They made a lot of aspects of their software open source. And the reason why he's able to do that with his companies is because of how he vertically integrates them, you know? And so it's like, we have our whole ecosystem, right, with SpaceX, Tesla, XAI, all that stuff combined, and it might all become a super. I mean, only Tesla left now. I think they, decent chance they merge or something, next year or so. But it's all a vertically integrated machine. So he's got that big ecosystem. So it's like he doesn't mind if GM or whoever, whether or not he's trying to block, but if they want to come in and do something with EVs, it's like, all right, let's see. No, go for it. Because GM doesn't have the entire, they don't have SpaceX, they don't have all these different components that can sort of be integrated into it in various ways, however he wants to do it. So it's a very, it's about pushing that industry forward, and he's in a position where he can do that now. But yeah, Al.
And also, what's the next step for Tesla at this point? It's just trying to make it the mass market use as many EV cars as possible. And if he gets this massive push from Chinese cars as well, then that's gonna boost his business.
Yeah.
It's better to have. So Mark Cuban quote, I think, or something. It's better to have like 50% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape.
Yeah.
He might be going for that now that he's built out Tesla and it's safe and it's going to stay.
Right.
Or he's looking at the electric truck. He's looking at getting compatibility with the Chinese electric grid.
Yes.
So I know that they do they have a deal with the US where all the other EVs can use Tesla supercharged stuff.
Maximizing those network externalities.
Yeah, so we're probably trying to do that for China or other countries at this point, yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
Anything else on Trump's China visit?
Yeah, can you scroll up to where Paul was talking about something about 120 lawmakers and
yes, right here.
Concerns about tariffs. And
all right.
How that pertains to EVs.
I think the US lawmakers want the tariffs to remain so that, because if you get rid of those, I mean, the Chinese EVs are way cheaper than anything the US makes. So, I mean, if you're the congressman for Detroit, that's probably bad. That's probably not ideal. You'll probably stop getting all that sick money from the Ford family if you fail to keep those tariffs in place.
Right. All right. Anything else on Trump and his China visit? Or should we move on?
Well, I was looking
want to say,
okay, go for it.
Just from the social media angle, I've been seeing so many it's not sponsored, but it's very clear. It feels a little bit artificial. Maybe it's just, I don't know, the zeitgeist catching on to it. But Instagram, especially Reels, has just been eating this trip up. They've been posting not even necessarily news, but random things from the visit. It's Jensen Huang eating
I saw that.
It's just being oh, it's interesting to see that they're coming at this from the point of view of pushing China good, as opposed to maybe 20 years ago it would be China bad, right? So I just want to point that out. See if you guys, clearly you've seen that too.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to see if you did.
Did you see the exchange about Trump going to the garden?
Yeah, with the trees and
why?
This is a 300-year-old tree, and Trump was didn't say anything about it.
Oh no! Trump asked Xi if he takes other people to the garden, and he was like, "No."
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it seem so nice and
make it seem like that.
It might be preparing. I don't know. Maybe might be reading into too deep or extrapolating, but might be preparing for much more friendly China-America relations going forward in the future.
Yeah, it was interesting how they rolled out the red carpet for Trump when he arrived, and they had all the kids waving American flags.
Mm-hmm.
My wife said it was like North Korea, but I don't know. That's
How about the Chinese stocks going crazy? The penny stocks. We definitely should talk about that because it was clockwork. It was the day before and it ran for the 2 days after. You had those 3 days.
Which ones were they again?
Dreamland,
was
TDIC,
TIG.
Walk, which is something medical group, I can't remember. WOK. There's a couple others, but they just went. It went from 50 cents to $30, and then all the way back down the next day.
So, all right, I can talk about these a little bit because I directly traded them, and also I think Quinn was also trading because in the there's a Discord for PMT, and that's where we kind of talk about the degenerate small cap, micro cap type trading, and I try to keep that separate from TIG, but, maybe we can introduce that to TIG and, make things, but you gotta be careful with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, yeah, with Trump's visit, just in anticipation of it, when you are messing around trading in small cap land, there's always just any theme that's in the headlines. There's gonna be some random BS small cap company out of nowhere that just will start flying, just for whatever reason. It gets pumped, they'll do some PR headline, maybe they'll get some word scraping algos, and retail buyers will be into it, but it's just gonna get pumped. And of course, for me, who tends to short these things, it's a good opportunity to, once I think it's probably run its course, not always, but then actually for TTIC, I think I was long that. I did well long there. And yeah, so this thing,
You were long the day before it went to 30.
yeah, like in the low single digits.
Yep.
So let's see how this played out. I can just go through it because I don't have my finger swim off the top of my head, but I wish I could get a better chart. But anyway, this thing, actually no, Yahoo Finance would have it. That would be a good one. Okay, yeah, this was absolutely insane. And also, these Chinese companies at the small cap level that trade on US markets, those are pretty much the most blatant scams of all. They pump and dump so ridiculously, with no shame. Let's see if I can, okay, I'll zoom in. Here, I'll do this.
How do you even check if it's like a real company? Eric, is there a good way to tell?
Not many of them are.
No, I'm like, yeah, I mean.
So yeah, I can go over that pretty quick. It's
Without actually going to
So,
the facility or whatever.
here we go.
If it even exists.
So this thing was in the ones. And then I think I traded this day, the breakout here, and 2 up to whatever, 4. I thought that was a good game. Apparently not though. Of course, after you get it, and it just runs even more. I think this, in the afternoon, then shot up, and eventually I think even into maybe after hours, it went up to 30. So it was 1 to 30. 1 to 30 in
Like an hour.
yeah, just over the course of 2 days, not even. Yeah. And then it crashed shortly after that. Over the course of a couple days, went back down to 1, in the ones, and now it's kind of faded into pennies. So 1 to 30 and back.
No news.
Than where it was.
No catalyst drove that.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
Trump visiting China, that's it. That's the speculation.
That's it. Yeah.
And so these companies are all scams, and this is how you know. First of all right, anything that's a tiny market cap, in the single digit millions or tens of millions or even low hundreds of millions. I talked about this before, but if you're a public company at that size, you pretty much have next to no chance of ever becoming a large blue chip that pushes the world forward and actually makes useful products and services. There's only been one company ever, off the top of my head, probably 1 in something thousand, that's ever done that, and that was Monster Energy. When they had pivoted from a health drink company in the 2000s, that was OTC, a penny stock that was dying. They just ripped off Red Bull and then, did the whole marketing thing with the X Games. And even the market was skeptical of that, but the short put was 60%. It ended up squeezing and ended up being confirmed later on. It was the real deal. But besides that, it never happens. To become a large blue chip company, you got to IPO through the traditional method. You need, prestige, name matters with the investment banks that are handling your IPO. For example, Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, who I think are actually handling the SpaceX IPO, go figure. But you need those connections. You need prominent venture capital backing, because if you did, that means the people who were dialed into the right stuff, they saw your thing, it made sense, they invested in you, all that, especially in tech. If you don't have that, like, it's just gonna be really hard. You're not gonna have the networks they have, you know? Like, you think about all these companies backed by like Peter Thiel, who's connected to everybody, right? Including the president. So, you know, something like a small cap, let alone Chinese small cap, but like just any small cap, micro cap, I mean, they're all just gonna be like pipe dreams at best. And they tend to end up just being these dilution scams. They'll do a pump, they'll crash, they'll go down, they will reverse split the shares to stay above the NASDAQ $1 listing requirement, then they'll just rinse and repeat. They're using the market as like a free ATM machine. And that, you know, gives opportunity for like short sellers. Let's see if I can get a better abuser of this. Yeah, so you look at this is how you know. Look at walk, right? Split adjusted since their IPO. This is an 11-cent stock right now. Split adjusted at their or when they went public, it was at $36,000 a share. Okay, now it wasn't actually at that price when it IPO'd. It was probably like, you know, $5 or something, but like it's the reverse split for eternity. And then so like people think, oh, you know, if a stock, it goes down to like pennies, it's a buying opportunity because it can't, no, it can actually keep going down like 99% a year until they run out of, you know, more shares to issue. Like it can actually keep going on for a while. The most notorious abuser of this was dry ships for like over a decade. And now they're delisted. But like the guy became like the richest person in Greece, this Greek shipping guy, and didn't even do anything profitable with his businesses. Yeah, he owned some ships, but really he was using dry ships as a cash extracting machine from US markets, just doing this whole dilution reverse split scam. And it's not actually a scam. That's the thing. It's technically legal. You get friends who are like, you know, you get friends who can serve as board members for you. They'll just approve anything you pass through. I mean, there's ways to sort of like operate as a legit public company that abides by all the legal, you know, stuff and run this type of thing. So, but I just call it a scam. It's not actually a scam. But again, it's a scam to buy these or invest in these, hoping that they, you know, do anything useful. At best, they're just short-term trading vehicles, and that's what I treat these as, from both the long and short side. But they're fun to look at, and we can dive into WAC. WAC was another crazy one that was moving on the whole Trump anticipation. Work medical technology. They'll claim to do. It's really just, you know, these things are like one little office somewhere in China with like nothing. Like there's nothing here. So we can look at what this did. Where are we at? Yeah, so this, okay, this is crazy. It had, yeah, so it did a pre-market pump this day. This is, it looks like the 11th, May 11th. So yeah, pre-market, it actually pumped to like something in the maybe, it's not showing on here because this only shows intraday, but it was like mid single digits. And then it started crashing pre-market. And then it opens up at like one something, like sub $2 a share, and it keeps crashing. And it keeps crashing to like pennies. It goes down to like 18 cents. And so if you were shorting this, you're probably celebrating, but look what happens throughout the rest of the day. It just climbs all the way back from 18 cents to like, you know, around $2, and then shoots up into the close to like near $4. So actually, no, I think the bottom was like 11 cents. 11 cents to $4 in the span of 24 hours. Think about the percentage gain on that. It's actually crazier than the TTWO one, which is 1 to 30. This is the equivalent of like a gain from like 1 to 40. So it kept running, went to like, yeah, 7. The next day, I think it went to double digits. It went to like maybe $12 or so, 11 or $12 after hours that day. So this was 11 cents to like $11 a share in like 2 days. And then they do, I don't know if it was a massive offering or it just crashed, but it crashed sub 2 the next day opened up and now it's back to 11 cents as of today. So blatant. So blatant. I think, yeah, they did some secondary offerings in there or something. And so they extracted the cash they wanted to extract. They paid their own salaries. They're not going to do anything useful with it. But yeah, this goes on with several hundred public companies all the time. There's a lot of edge in this. And the rules are such that companies can run this, but, they allow for also, okay, you use the financial markets to raise money, to do like a big build out or something to fund your company. And so these companies, these little small caps, they do nothing with it. But like a Tesla is going to use it to build like a gigafactory or something, they're going to use it the right way. And because of how our system is, if you have one Tesla being successful, then it sort of offsets several hundred of these and then some type companies just doing nothing with it. It's a weird system, but they rely on like short sellers to sort of like correct the prices themselves with their own trading action.
Right.
So that's just how the game works. It's a weird loophole that exists in financial markets, but it is what it is. It's why I can stay in business doing what I do. Any more on that small cap stuff with the China, or we can move on? Okay. Staying in sort of the whole tech realm though, do you want to talk about, okay, actually I want to talk about the second one regardless, but does anyone want to talk about the Intel and Apple deal? Mario, don't you have some Intel stock?
I do have Intel stock.
Any thoughts on this?
No, I think it's kind of like Intel's first direction of doing something concrete.
Yeah.
Really, the stock's been running just because the administration bought some last year in kind of like an unprecedented move from the government side. But I didn't get a chance to look up the details on what the deal is.
I think it was Apple was just going to start using Intel chips or something. Let's see. Okay, Apple's yeah, okay. Intel has been, they've been under pressure in recent years just because, NVIDIA and AMD, but especially NVIDIA has just eaten their lunch. Intel was once the big dominant blue chip for a while, but they fell from 60 in 2021 down to like 20 or sub 20 lately. So they've been struggling. They've been losing market share. But lately, they've turned around, at least stock-wise, because the government's taken a stake in them. And they got a new CEO who apparently has been getting some deals. But as a company, they haven't really shown that much for it yet. But of course, stocks are forward-looking. So the market's starting to sort of price in that Intel will pull off a successful turnaround. And now Intel has not only gotten back to those levels from 2021, they've actually doubled it. Now the stock's at around $120 a share. And market cap is what, 602 billion now? And this is largely on speculation though. You look at, there's no earnings right now. They're still, losing money. Forward PE is very high. It's 80. So it's like, there's a lot of expectation baked in here. And so it's just a matter of, does the company execute? But they have the backing, right? They have the government tailwinds. They have this deal with Apple. So it's like expectation of future revenue and therefore earnings coming in. So it seems like they're here to stay just as a company for a while. As a stock, is it a good buy now? I don't know. It seems like a lot of this run has already happened. And of course, you never know. Maybe they don't execute well. And that could be a drag on them long term. But they have the AI infrastructure tailwinds. So it's a speculative bet. It's a large one at 600 billion, but it's a speculative bet right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would add, it seems that from the government investing in companies side, that they're moving on to whatever the next thing they can drive up is. So Intel, I would imagine, is going to come down to more manageable levels in terms of price tag.
Yeah.
Until they actually start showing something.
We need several quarters to actually come in where we see some actual results from all of the deals they've made. and then we'll see. So yeah, the stock may be due for, I wouldn't say a pullback, but it's just like, are you gonna get this type of crazy spike? Well, I wouldn't bet on it now. The time to get in was months ago for that. But the next thing really wanted to talk about was this whole, so the recent deals SpaceX has made. SpaceX has sort of locked Anthropic in and now Google in. So they're almost acting now. Let's ChatGPT here. That's my phone, sorry. So again, I mean, it seems like Elon's playing his cards right with this. Yeah, so Anthropic is going to pay SpaceX $1.25 billion per month to SpaceX for compute capacity tied to their Colossus data center under XAI. And Colossus is the largest data center right now. That's down in Tennessee in the Memphis area. So now SpaceX is acting as a giant neo cloud third-party data center provider, much like we're betting on IREN, NBIS, et cetera, et cetera. SpaceX is like a giant version of that now for Anthropic. And thing is, I don't know, did anyone watch the Gavin Baker videos that was linked in the? All right, I think you guys should watch that because there's so much value in there. And he talks about this and how the whole just SpaceX acting as a neocloud, but then he's actually very bullish on the existing neoclouds anyway, just because the demand for compute is so astronomically high. And we've mentioned this before, like at last meeting, but I've noticed when I use Claude and ChatGPT, I'm getting like rate limited more. It's just not giving me more detailed answers like it was a couple months ago. So I'm like, well, they've been running into a wall, obviously, because they don't want to spend as much and they don't have enough capacity. And so now they have to strike deals with other companies that have existing facilities built up, for example, SpaceX with their data centers. And then to add on to that, big for them.
I saw 300 megawatts of capacity at first. What does it scale into? What's the top?
Right here. Okay. It says, 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs. Okay. Lost it.
Eric, I saw something in the news about how Microsoft is moving away from Anthropic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if they're
They're apparently canceling the cloud licenses and have the people move to like Copilot because it's too expensive.
Well, because they're like directly competing probably in the enterprise.
So I just don't know if we're speculating that like Anthropic needs SpaceX because they're no longer going to be with Microsoft.
Maybe. Did the issues with the Pentagon get resolved or no?
I'm not sure.
All right, so with this, Quinn, what did you want to highlight again?
I'm checking right now.
So
I saw they baked in a 90-day escape clause.
Okay.
Why do you think they would do that?
So that means that, let me see here. Features a premium 90-day termination clause for either party. Industry insiders know Anthropic paid a premium for this. So it may act as an immediate stopgap. Okay. While their other things come online. Interesting. Okay, so it sounds like they just want some flexibility in maneuvering. They don't want to be totally at the whim, maybe, of SpaceX because they are competing.
Yeah, that's true.
They have Grok. SpaceX has Grok and Anthropic has Claude. So it's interesting. It's like you're doing deals with the devil here. Like they're forced to kind of do deals with SpaceX. Not because they want to, but because they just SpaceX has the infrastructure, they don't. That's it. So this is why the infrastructure bet is actually that's the play. in all this. And then I want to talk about the Google. So obviously, and Gavin Baker actually talks about this, the whole data centers and space thing. And he actually thinks it'll become clear. The thesis will become very clear and favorable, like within 2 years. And then he actually thinks before 2030 that it's going to start actually scaling, like SpaceX doing launches, getting these things, these data centers with their GPUs orbiting. It's going to start before 2030. We'll see. All right, so Google and SpaceX did a deal. Yeah, so it would involve launching solar-powered AI compute infrastructure into orbit. Yeah, data centers in space, orbital compute. And we've talked about this at one of the meetings, but there's a lot of physics and theoretical stuff that goes into it. But I guess the whole thing about having the data center in space is that space is, basically absolute zero in temperature. And so it's going to provide a lot of cooling right there. And you have more direct sunlight. You have no atmospheric interference. So with solar panels, you can, get power easier. Because, data centers, they need power and they need cooling. And that's a big chunk of their costs. So in theory, if this scales up and if they can get the technology efficient enough, then it could actually be like cheaper, just a better cost. There's a better cost benefit to doing this than, say, having a terrestrial data center. It also leads into the question, does that mean the third-party data centers, the terrestrial ones that aren't space, are they screwed long-term? Well, Gavin Baker at least says probably not. I think he says the compute's going to be needed all around regardless. So anyone who just has facilities, whether it's terrestrial or in space, should benefit. Al, did you want to?
So any ideas to get the numbers on how much better the space ones will be compared to terrestrial ones? Because you can get a factor of like it's 5 cents cheaper per whatever. It's like 20 cents for space and then 25 cents for terrestrial for whatever measurement of compute.
Let's see if ChatGPT can do this. I think ChatGPT is better at sort of the language stuff. But
this might also just be so far, like grabbing numbers out of thin air that
it is. It's a lot of ballpark estimation. We can see what the AI comes up with here.
I mean, the only other thing that I would be curious would be if people are actually gonna have faith that the space centers are gonna work. Because just because you have one doesn't mean you need universal buy-in, right?
Say the last part again?
You need universal buy-in. But there's always gonna be people that are gonna prefer the terrestrial one. That's just what they know. They know that it works. And
the reliability, I don't think would be a question. If anything, it might even be easier from space because there's less interference.
It's also an environmental thing. I think that's gonna help people get on board.
That's gonna be that's gonna be a massive one. We're already seeing tons of people being like, no data centers in our backyard or anything.
I mean,
like that.
what it does to the water,
This is really
even just what it does.
big way to avoid that.
Has anyone seen anything? I saw it on the news recently. I'm not sure if we talked about it here or not, but they're figuring out how to beam energy from space. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that's a big part that goes into it, the ground component too. And
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not the expert on the physics of that, but that seems to be like the main issue. All right, so here's a table I asked Claude to do, just so we can kind of get a better visual here. Okay, so what are these costs here? Okay, 1 gigawatt all-in capex, baseline terrestrial, 15 billion versus 42 billion for today. Okay. Cost per watt, 3 times for terrestrial one, 3 times the terrestrial one for the space-based. Okay, so infrastructure cost per megawatt, 12 to 15 million versus less than 5 million for space-based. Okay. Okay, then there's the whole launch cost. Yeah. Okay. Time to deploy is much shorter because you just launch it, get it out into space. Whereas on land, yeah, it can take several years to build and get these things up and working. So time is also a comparison you have to do. Time as a value to it. Okay.
If we put a data center or some center on the moon, do we claim that space is part of America? And does that set up like, you know, a fight with China and Russia? Are they each gonna go put their flags, you know,
It
all over
sounds
the
very
moon? It's-
futuristic science fiction-y, but no, it's gonna be a legit thing if, because Elon does wanna put some on the moon. And obviously then, okay, we didn't think about it then, but now that we're gonna have like some type of economic, you know, producing asset on the moon, that means that now it's the territory and all that stuff has to come into play. So I think they're gonna have to invent whatever legal, regulatory, political stuff around that. Actually, I wanna ask, let me ask Claude that.
What are the last two rows in that table that it made?
Opposition, right, yeah, so like, you know, just the whole local opposition, you know, people who live near it, or communities near it. Whereas versus in space, that's for terrestrial. For space, well, you just put it out in space. Let's get the space protesters, people start living out in space.
Eric, what are the rules for satellites? Are there any rules in terms of like, you're just able to blast one without any?
Probably goes to the whole.
Beyond the FCC. Like.
No, I mean like
Like an international treaty?
like, because they have an,
There's a maximum amount of objects they can have up there.
right.
I remember, before it becomes like too much.
I assume you can't shoot it from every location too, obviously, right?
That's more to do with like junk
Yeah,
and debris rather than actual stations.
which might add cost to it.
Yeah.
Might have to have space garbage trucks. As a
Yeah.
part of the data center.
Yeah, because what if they get hit?
It just makes more debris. I don't even know if there's a smart, I remember reading about, or watching a video about that, but is there any like smart solution to like the really fast particles or no? Or is it just kind of like people like, whatever?
I mean, magnets.
You gotta like hit it away in a different direction, maybe.
But if it's like a really small, like literally the size of this like pen tip and it's like traveling like 40,000 miles a second or something like, that's way too fast, 40,000 miles an hour. Like, how do you stop that? Like, no magnets, you can't really catch with the screen, it's just gonna punch through.
That's interesting.
There's probably a solution, but I'd wonder what it is and like how expensive it is.
Who do you think would be the first space garbage people?
Probably somebody around SpaceX
Yeah, right.
or them themselves.
Or Rocket Lab, you never know. All right, so I asked the question, just what would the legal stuff, you know, regulatory stuff be around, and political, around like, you know, satellite launches, and also if we did moon data centers. Let's see what Claude comes up with here. All right, this is a lot, okay, try to skim it. Okay. Yeah, launching anything as a licensed activity, okay. As of March 2026, all licensing must occur under Part 450, which replaces 4 older sets of rules with a single, okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, an orbital data center is not one launch, it's a constellation requiring potentially thousands of launches, yes. Okay, just to form one, yes, okay. The cadence of licensing is the bottleneck, not any single approval, okay. It's been genuinely strained. Industry has complained that getting Part 450 licenses has been difficult, citing a long pre-application process and limited guidance. Okay, at a 2023 hearing, the SpaceX VP warned the entire regulatory system is at risk of collapse, okay. So there are things around this. Okay. Orbital debris and collision, yeah, because if we get more stuff into space and orbit, that increases the chances of collisions happening among satellites and so forth. Okay. enforces a separate orbital debris review involving, okay.
Could they put data centers and solar farms out in the ocean? Or, in Lake Michigan,
was,
between Michigan
Like
and
if it was viable to do it. Yeah, I don't know, like, at least it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't, the thing is, a water, like a data center in the ocean doesn't seem like it's economically feasible, because then the whole, how difficult it would be to like build up a whole foundation, or I don't know if there's something, if it was in the water, who knows what, that would just cost a lot, but, so at least they don't have to think about that, but that would be.
But it would cost a lot to put it on the moon.
Yeah, but this is basically what we're just, like, that would be a similarity, it's essentially like putting something in the ocean, because it's, who knows politically who controls what.
I think you're gonna get less pushback from the environmentalists to be put on the moon than in the ocean.
Yeah.
The thing with the ocean is that any damage that, reaches the internal hardware is probably fatal to the structure of the data center. And with each data center costing so much, it's probably just a risk that's too big to take. Just based on how they're made.
So when it talks about the moon, it seems like nothing, obviously it's too early for that, like nothing legally has really been set up yet. There are restrictions for satellites orbiting, but who knows? I mean, you think about, SpaceX at least is a monopoly. Like, they have near total control. I know we have Rocket Lab and some other space companies out there, but SpaceX has near total control over space, and they're essentially acting like NASA now for us and for like a bunch of other countries. So even if there are regulations surrounding something, well, they could lobby for, whatever they wanted to lobby for and get things pushed in their favor. So that also would come into play. Anything else on the space data centers deals, or should we move to the next topic?
I'll just throw in, I did see a company that is building data centers in the ocean, and they're not traditional. They're not exactly as you'd think a data center to be. It's more of like a cluster in a smaller box that is powered by the waves going up and down. They're mounted on the ground in the ocean, and as the waves, buoy the data center up and down, it's actively powering itself. And so I think these things are going to look a lot different as time goes on, and people are going to be getting very creative. I don't know how practical those are at this moment, but I did see one that there is a proof of concept out there.
Interesting.
So one thing with that I would be curious to see if you read about it all would be like, do you think that countries would try to do it within their range? Because every country gets 200 nautical miles off their borders. I assume countries would try to do it within their control rate. Otherwise, they could just be taken out in international waters.
Absolutely. I also think there's something to, how far you have to mount it down, how deep it is there, what the climate is like, how, is it going to get destroyed in a hurricane or tsunami?
What if people start stealing them?
I think that's something to consider for sure. Right.
I think the biggest challenge, and like I'm not a science expert, so this is just like what I've read or heard from other people. It's like cooling the data centers with salt water. It's like far more corrosive than like regular water.
True.
So it's like the maintenance you need to put into it is like you have to maintain it at a much higher rate and a much more expensive rate. And then now if it's, several miles off of shores, now you have crews that need to go out there often to also maintain. Or if it's at the bottom of the ocean, like that's extremely difficult to get down there and do maintenance on. So I think that's like the biggest issue with using salt water for cooling.
So there is a fully operational data center, I guess you want to call it, like this is it. It's in Hainan province in China. So there you go.
Look at that.
And the ocean, it provides cooling. So that is something, at least
but it can't
saves on. But yeah, again, it's underwater, so there's a whole lot.
It can't get light then. It can't get any light.
Right. So there's a bunch of other issues that go with that.
Use the waves, I guess, it's true.
Who knows? Maybe if things become too crowded on land and then they don't want to spend as much money on doing something thing in space, maybe there's a.
Well, China's making all these islands.
Yeah.
You know, creating all these unoccupied islands.
They're setting it up for
They
this.
could put a data center or a solar farm there.
Yeah, if someone's gonna do this, I would bet on China doing it.
Yeah.
They would be most willing to experiment with this.
It's also like a distance issue too, right? Like your latency, like isn't that like the whole thing with like putting them in space too? It's like the further you're like it is from the people trying to use it, like isn't that a problem?
Underwater, I feel like it wouldn't really matter. Because it's still using the same cables that it would if it like was in the middle of Kansas or something.
Yeah, but I'm saying like for space.
Oh yeah, if you, on that chart that Eric put in, yeah, it said that it would be pretty latency heavy. So they'd probably just use it for mainly like training instead of directly like ChatGPT something and then it goes up into space and comes back down. That's way slower than ChatGPT. It goes to some data center in Tennessee, comes back.
All right, so kind of segueing, but still focused on SpaceX. And I know Al really wants to talk about this one. So about a month ago or so, SpaceX struck a deal with Cursor where it was like, hey, and we talked about this in the previous meeting, hey, we'll buy you for 60 billion or we'll pay you 10 billion for work done. And now SpaceX has decided to just acquire Cursor outright for 60 billion. So now that adds to the whole vertically integrated machine. It makes you want, SpaceX is, I mean, they're gonna have to keep raising money to do this with the IPO. So there's all kinds of questions about the valuation of it, but hey, they're getting Cursor too. So Al, what do you have to say about this?
I mean, not too much in regards to exactly the deal, but a little bit more about Cursor. They recently released that Composer 2.5 model, which is like really, really good. It's at the level of like ChatGPT, or it's at the level of Opus 4.6 on like Max, and whichever one, ChatGPT 5.5 Max or whatever as well. It's at that level, but it's also ridiculously cheaper than that. It's like pennies on the dollar compared to how much those cost. But interestingly enough, a lot of these models that all these companies create, they release them to the dev environment in this sort of way where it makes it easy for anybody to kind of apply them directly to their apps. They just give you, like you can use directly the raw Anthropic models, the raw ChatGPT models, and then construct whatever you want to around them, which is what harnesses are. But what Cursor is doing, they're not allowing you to create your own harness around it. The only way to use the Cursor model is directly through Cursor with their associated harnesses, which is very different. Nobody else has done that. So they have a really good model they just came out with, and they're not letting everybody use it in full, complete, do whatever you want to with it. But I think they're basically creating a model that's competing with Anthropic and with OpenAI, which Google is failing to do so, Microsoft is failing to do so. And a lot of the people in the dev community that I've seen on Twitter are saying that there's a very good chance that Cursor might be one of the leading model providers going forward. Like they have a very good shot at it. And honestly, looking at their business plan and everything like that and everything else that they're doing, it looks like they're planning on doing that. Like they want to do that. And they have a very good shot at doing that. So maybe in the past it would have been ChatGPT or Claude and Gemini. Now it's looking to be like Cursor's Composer and then ChatGPT and Anthropic.
Yeah, and actually the big point, just looking at ChatGPT, but the big point on this is, SpaceX can combine Cursor, and what they have, their tools, with their giant Colossus data center and supercomputer training, and so it's like they can also take Cursor and then they can train it using their stuff, boost it even more, make Cursor even better, combine that with everything Cursor can already do, and then you can make even better and better models. And then that adds to the whole monopoly. So it's definitely like, I see the reasoning from a business angle, and you think about it, like there's things being valued in like the hundreds of billions in this AI boom that I would argue probably don't have. I wouldn't say they don't have it's just different, but like, if those are worth hundreds of billions, and Cursor, which is very important and essential for a lot of, software engineers right now, and that's 60 billion, like, it's like, well, that sounds cheap, like a cheap acquisition for SpaceX.
But they're also, Cursor is mainly just like the talent and then like
Yeah,
the integration with people who develop stuff.
right, and the people they have, and then you combine that with SpaceX, it just adds to it, so.
Whereas, yeah, like Anthropic and OpenAI, they also have their infrastructure, right, everything like that. Whereas it's like a smaller.
Yeah.
They have like the fire, they have the thing that's gonna create stuff, they don't have too much wood.
Right, and so combining with that, then you can operate at the level of, say, like an Anthropic and surpass them, probably, yeah. So, no, it's something to really, I mean, I think that's a huge thing.
In a smaller angle, I'm curious about what everybody else thinks. But I think that Anthropic and OpenAI, they're kind of younger companies. They don't have as much success, like they don't have as much previous knowledge going forward of how to run a good company. So they might start making mistakes. Like I've already seen Anthropic is making tons of mistakes in ChatGPT too, where they're like making it harder for people to use their tools, etc. And then if you combine all that raw talent that Cursor has, that OpenAI Anthropic has to develop these models and create these new techniques, and you combine that with the knowledge and the experience that SpaceX might have, I think that they're going to perform a lot better than Anthropic and OpenAI are doing. They're going to make less of these stupid mistakes, like making you spend more money just because you have like OpenClaw in your like prompt session to Anthropic than if you didn't, which is like they're more seasoned. They're going to be more seasoned and make better decisions going forward because they have the knowledge from SpaceX.
Does anyone want to ballpark estimate or just share their thoughts on what they think happens after SpaceX IPOs on June 12th? Is it going to go up? Is it going to crash? Like, what's going to happen? Yeah.
I've been thinking and talking a lot about this.
Yeah.
So I heard that, I don't know the numbers on it, and I haven't heard a recent update, but I heard that they're not listing a large chunk of all the shares that are out there. As you can imagine, people who might own SpaceX around this table probably aren't unloading in the first week, probably not in the first year, maybe after. So my theory is that there's only going to be a small fraction of shares that are put public, and all of these Robinhood investors that have this special access to the IPO maybe 4 hours before it goes public, they're going to be diving in like crazy. Then it hits the market. I think people are going to be FOMOing. I think it's going to be a good week of people buying it up. But then slowly over time, people are going to start realizing the fundamentals aren't there to back up that valuation. People that are on this table who are up 1,000, 10,000% on their SpaceX holdings are going to want to start cashing in on some of those gains. Then you're diluting the stock a lot more. In order for the stock to hold up at that valuation, you're going to need a lot of buying pressure, and they're going to need to be moving fast. SpaceX isn't a fast business model. They take a lot of time and a lot of money. So my theory is that it's going to rise very fast, but I don't think it's going to stay above IPO prices for long.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that this kind of IPO that we're going to see is going to be different from anyone that we've seen before. I think they have, again, seeing a lot of Instagram memes and viral posts about a SpaceX IPO and Anthropic's and OpenAI's, which is weird to see things go viral like that, like memes about an IPO. That's really weird, and I think that they're doing a really good job of marketing it, and I think it's going to go crazy with retail traders, and I think it's going to go up like crazy, like Quinn is saying, but then all the retail traders it's going to be like, not exactly a GameStop thing, but like GameStop energy to it, you know, like small pump stock energy to it.
I'm curious, how many of you, because everyone here, or most people here use, some type of broker, how many of your brokers have sort of floated like, hey, you can get SpaceX shares before the IPO? Like, no one yet? Because I've heard, haven't they let some for like Ameritrade, maybe Robinhood?
Robinhood for sure.
Okay.
Charles Schwab, yeah.
It's Robinhood, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, SoFi, and E-Trade.
But how do you get access to that if you're one of those customers?
They will be available on those platforms at some point.
Okay.
They haven't just
Maybe it's gonna be some free-for-all frenzy thing where you gotta
fly.
Yeah, it's just they're gonna incite some type of like compressed. It's like a coiled spring.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume there'll be some line based on size of some of these people with accounts. Yeah.
I looked at it. If you want to buy it immediately after it IPOs, just like a regular retail trader, you're just fighting with everybody. It's just like piranhas attacking like a piece of meat or something like that in the water. But if you have enough like money in whatever brokerage you have, you can register to be selected for IPO pre-filling pre-filling's not the word, but like you get it at the IPO price, but you have to have enough money with whatever brokerage you have.
Oh.
And even then you have to be like selected, which they have discretion to say no, but most of the time you can. So in terms of like actually like making a trade on this, I think if you have the ability to buy through your broker's like IPO filling or whatever, there's a specific name to it. You have to go to their calendar. If you have the ability to buy it through that, I feel like it's not a bad idea to buy it through that and even just like immediately sell it like a couple of hours later. That's still gonna be like very solid, good percents, I think, on that. And in terms of if you wanna go into the piranha feeding frenzy, I don't really know about that. Do whatever you want to.
Yeah, so
Check that out through your broker.
it seems like it's been priced at, I think the latest funding round, what, 1.75 trillion?
Yeah.
Something. On Hyperliquid, which is some type of broker thing where you can do what? I don't know. Is it crypto based? I don't know. It's some other thing, but it's
Super high leverage on things.
okay. It's traded at 203, which implied market cap of 2.4 trillion. So I would say, and knowing how the IPO game works, I'd say a very good chance this opens above 3 trillion or so. You know how it goes. Honestly, like just speaking as the trader in me, would not shock me if just for the memes and the giggles, it surpasses NVIDIA in market cap. Like, it could happen just in a blip and then crash. But what I'm saying is just to get that's just how things go in the trading world. The stupidest headline always happens. So I could see it passing up NVIDIA, like just briefly at least.
Especially if it's low float too.
Yeah, they're compressing the float on this. So
I think one catalyst that could keep the stock just absolutely pumping post IPO is that everyone knows this is going to get added to like most of these indices, like S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. And so with that in mind, there's going to be a bunch of people who essentially are like front running that, right? They know all the passive ETFs are going to need to buy this up. And they're like, well, I could hold this for the next 12 months until it gets added to these indices. And I know the stock price is going to go up as a result of that. So that could push it. I think that could push it up as well. Yeah. So because it's very rarely do you have a company IPO that everyone knows is going to get added to like the S&P 500 to NASDAQ 100.
The index requirements.
The NASDAQ 100 changed theirs a bit. S&P didn't. I doubt they will.
It goes to show if you're big and powerful enough, like SpaceX, you can push the regulations anyway.
Yeah.
So to go to the whole point, if we get onto the moon or something, who knows? But
yeah.
Push it.
I'm not exactly sure what they changed. I don't think it was anything too crazy. I think a lot of people kind of just blew it out of proportion, but I don't remember off the top of my head what the exact changes were. If we want to ask Claude.
Bottom line, they're going to get it in there. They're going to get it in the big indexes. And also NVIDIA is a 5.2 trillion market cap right now.
Yep.
So, all right. That's the mark for the meats, I could see it pumping to that at some point, and then who knows what it does after. People floated around 10 trillion in value. Like I've seen a justification on Twitter. Someone did a whole like crazy analysis to justify 10 trillion. I have no idea. The reality is no one knows how to value this thing. That doesn't mean it's overvalued. It just means there's so many unknown variables that you can do pie in the sky or just back the envelope math on, because it's forward looking. It's pricing in the space industry build out, which has not really been done to the scale they're planning on. So you can just throw any number out there. Now, people could say, well, look, they did that in .com and everything crashed, but it seems like, if you look at how things are scaling, it's not like super out of the question, if this data center thing actually gets going. So you can't just say, oh, it's overvalued, it's going to crash. It's just never been done before at this level. SpaceX is essentially a massive startup. It's a massive startup, but they're actually they're moving towards their goals, or at least they're executing so far. Now with Elon, it's dubious on the timelines in that he operates, because Elon is the salesman, great salesman. He always floats the most optimistic timeline possible, but he does that intentionally. to sort of motivate his employees and also just get the funding. But so he claims, right, space-based data centers in 3 years. Gavin Baker, who I would trust as more, he's a leading semis analyst, but he's more level-headed on this. He says he's even saying before 2030, which is 4 years. So it seems like, okay, this thesis is not like too far-fetched. So again, SpaceX, it really, I think it depends on market sentiment. But the market sentiment's pretty hot, and just you think about all the other IPOs that are going to happen pretty soon, Anthropic, OpenAI, and then Andrew probably next year. Like, the sentiment could still stay quite hot, you know?
This might be the first of many.
Yeah, it could get crazy. It could get crazy. Like, we really haven't had that type of level of mania. Like, even a lot of us weren't around for that, but you just research it, study it. That level of mania that .com had, that .com boom, we haven't had that, it seems like. So if there's something that's going to sort of jettison that, it would be this, combined with, again, we talked about this before, but the pattern day trading requirements.
Oh God, yeah.
Like the $25,000 pattern day trading limit being removed, and now everyone's going to be able to gamble on their tiny accounts, you know, in and out. Like, it's just gonna, you see it. It's just the SIBO becoming, you know, doing binary options. Like, look, we're going to turn this into a high volume gambling house. And so what's that going to do? Exacerbate momentum, you know? So yeah, this could get very nuts. This could get very nuts, and it might not just stop with SpaceX. I think very good chance it gets crazier, a lot crazier. But I'm not about to like throw out a prediction for what I think SpaceX will do. But I'll just say I could see it passing up NVIDIA pretty quickly. What it does from there, who knows? But yeah.
If your time horizon is 10 plus years, do you think buying SpaceX on IPO is a good idea?
I would say yeah. But again, I would expect some point, every stock has their, you know, and also every industry boom wave is going to have their massive drawdown period where sentiment reverses. And so would not be shocked to see some kind of 50 to 70% or more drawdown in SpaceX also during that time frame. You know, yeah, they could be higher, a lot higher than now, but it's like, it's not going to be a smooth ride, that's for sure. You know, I mean, it could very well even just crash after this IPO a lot. So it's going to be a volatile ride regardless. So if you're buying this or thinking about buying this is not financial advice, but like, just keep in mind, this thing's, even though it's a large cap, like a mega cap, like it can still be crazy. And so just be aware of the risk and the downside risk. So just allocate properly. How many of you plan to, if you're not in SpaceX, how many of you plan to buy it? Like
at
IPO, yeah, or pretty quickly. Okay, some of you.
I don't know if I'll buy it day of the IPO, but
Yeah,
definitely at some point.
right. Do you
Yeah.
guys want to explain your thesis or just why you think,
I think just long term,
Yeah.
he's gonna make
Yeah.
it work, you know?
right?
That's and he's a really motivated guy. And even 3-year timeline of putting data centers up there, I mean, that sounds amazing, and he's leading that now, and he's thinking about that, and it's gonna work. I don't know, he's really gonna put his mind to it.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys that, man, you don't see around. Like,
Right.
he comes one of every 100 years, you know?
It's like
So,
a Rockefeller type.
Yeah,
Edison type, yeah, like that. Mario, did you want to explain your?
Yeah, no, I definitely see the value in the long-term play of SpaceX, but if I can get shares at the IPO price, it would be for some crazy run up and then get out.
Yeah.
Reassess.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the hype is there.
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Sure.
viral everywhere, and especially with OpenAI
And
dropping.
I just looked up on Robinhood's IPO access page, which usually has a couple of listings of whatever's coming up. They have nothing right now.
Yeah, they don't got it on there.
So it's gonna be this and nothing else, which is gonna be a lot for retail.
And you know, Robinhood's going to try to incite maximum feeding frenzy.
100%.
They know how to do that.
It's gonna be posted on the front page.
Yeah. All the
You'll have
ads.
to scroll to look at like how your account is doing, because it's just gonna be SpaceX at the top.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did anyone else say they were getting in? Al, did you say?
Yeah, I'm like what Mario said, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so.
Can we ask Claude to dive into, I know they published some stuff with the SEC for the roadshow they're going on, and I know there was some like top line, like revenue information and bottom line information as well. But I think what I've seen based on that, it puts SpaceX at like 150 times sales, like at its IPO price. So that's what I've been watching. I own Rocket Lab. And so I've kind of been saying like, all right, this is obviously going to run up with the SpaceX hype, but at a certain point, after a certain valuation, just me personally, it's like I can't justify owning it once it's deviated so far from like a rational valuation. So I'm just curious to see what those metrics look like for SpaceX.
While that's doing that, I'll just, as a sort of an analogy or comparison, like Palantir, for example, it's a company no one knows how to value.
Yeah.
Like a lot of funds just don't invest in it, right? Because how do you value it? But we know that, actually, we don't even know the specifics of their technology because they're secretive about it because it's intelligence related. But like, apparently they have a big moat on it. And so they're trading at, 62, 63 times sales, which is absurd,
Yeah.
It's like historically, if you go through like any back tests or whatever, like a company trading at that type of valuation is just bound to crash in stock because no company has ever sustained a growth rate to justify that. But Palantir's growth rate has been absolutely crazy, just consistently growing 50, 60% their sales every year. We're dealing with the great unknowns here, but SpaceX is very similar in that.
Key difference there though is like they're profitable, so you can get like kind of like you can start using like their forward PE to justify any of these certain things. And like Palantir's a good example. I mean, that used to trade 500 times earnings. Now it's down to like 130, still high, but a big part of that's just how flat the stock's been. The past, call it 6 to 12 months. After a huge run up, but I'm curious to see what these valuation metrics look like.
By trailing 12-month revenue or the 2025 numbers that came out in the S1, I think, so at 1.75 trillion, price to sales ratio is going to be like 93, 94.
Okay.
Now, and then 2 trillion, it'll be 107. 3 trillion, I'm sure where it probably ends up, it's going to be,
yeah.
That's, so it's going to be like, let's just call it Palantir-ish type valuation.
Okay.
Straight on that, but.
Yeah, cause so like for reference, Rocket Lab is I think 115 times sales. Yeah, 115 times sales right now. So I've started to trim because I mean I've always been very bullish on it, but my logic has been, can it trade at a more expensive valuation than SpaceX?
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't. Just given like the actual like market share that each of them would get in their respective businesses. Like, I mean, SpaceX is significantly larger, call it, 20 times, 25 times larger.
Again, this is essentially Rocket Lab is interesting because it's now it's what, 78, 79 billion in market cap. Oh, like I remember when this was like single digit billions, but anyway, it's essentially like pre-revenue now because they do have revenue and they do have the successful Neutron launches or the Electron launches, and that's operating pretty consistently. But those rockets are so tiny, those rockets are so tiny, and like all the value or most of it's contingent on them getting their medium payload Neutron rocket up and running. And that thing has not even really been built yet. Or it hasn't been launched yet. They got to do some test launches. And with the launch industry, like even SpaceX, when you're getting a new rocket going, you're going to have some failures. It's just bound to happen. Physics is different, gravity and getting into space, like that's difficult to achieve. And so they'll learn by doing, but they have to get some launches out there. There's probably going to be some failures. It's going to cost. It tends to usually cost more than expected. Seems like they don't have much cash there, so they might have to do some more raises. But again, this Neutron rocket, it's contingent on this, and we just don't know yet. Now, given the track record of like Peter Beck and what they've done with Electron, which is already amazing because pretty much no other company really besides SpaceX and Rocket Lab, at least publicly, has pulled that off. We're not even close, like getting rockets consistently into orbit. Like I would bet on them figuring Neutron out. It's just, what's the time frame on that, right?
Yeah.
Could be several years. Who knows? Could be quicker than that, but it's just the great unknown. But yeah, if you want to, like, you know, with space, it's just lots of speculative value. It's all based on future expectations. Now, SpaceX does have some, I mean, they have Starlink. They have some things going for them, you know, things, Starlink could be a potential monopoly in the future, gunning for AT&T and Verizon. We'll see how that scales.
Or for like,
yeah.
I think they're for like airlines. Like
Yeah, they're putting it on all the airlines now.
It's like all Starlink.
Yeah, so it's coming. You'll be able to get a connection from anywhere.
Yeah.
And then XAI, and they have Cursor, right? So there's other things they have now. I think they're still trying to figure out potential revenues down the line from that. But, so you can't really look too hard at the trailing 12-month numbers because things have changed a lot just within recent weeks. But if you're comparing among, you know, those types of metrics, if you want to, versus a Rocket Lab, then I would say SpaceX is better value than the Rocket Lab because of all the things they have going for them, you know? So, but then Rocket Lab's just smaller. So in terms of relative stock growth potential, sure, there's a lot more there. But yeah, it's just, we're dealing with so many unknowns. And that's just, you're just gonna have to take a stab in the dark on what you think the value should be, you know, because, and just, if anyone says the value should be a certain thing, well, they're just don't believe them because no one knows. That's the true answer. We'll just see what the market thinks on this. But I think it could get very crazy. The market loves to overshoot both directions. So it's gonna be a wild ride regardless. I think me personally, I'm gonna at least keep a portion of it, probably at least half of it. I may or may not sell some on the IPO or shortly after, but I do want to keep a chunk forever. Because I do believe in the whole, you know, down the line, yeah, the long-term thesis, I believe in that too. I mean, Elon's got the track record of disruption, innovation. So, yeah. To go, any more questions on SpaceX? Okay. To kind of stay with the whole pre-revenue and speculative pie in the sky stuff. This is something I think John wanted to talk about. We can dive into the whole, the quantum computing deals or with the government, I think. All right, quick question. Is anyone here a quantum computing bull or wants to make a case for quantum computing? No, okay. Yeah, I'm pretty bearish on the existing quantum.
I'll make a case for IBM, that's it.
Okay, well, make a case for IBM.
IBM is the most established and the closest to it. I'd say beyond that, they're just being widely accepted across the industry as the front runner.
Yeah.
Beyond all these speculative companies. Anybody who has some sort of a deal or partnership with IBM in quantum is seen as a front runner.
Yeah.
Taking from firsthand experience, IBM is spearheading the Illinois Quantum Microelectronics Park over on the south side. And they just got, what, $1 billion grant from the US government, completely towering over every other company that got a grant, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, that's a good point, because from an investing perspective, especially in something like this crazy speculative, like, you gotta think, who has the actual resources to even pull this technology off? The only one would be IBM right now, because this is something that's gonna cost at least tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, maybe even trillions down the line, and that IBM is at least well capitalized to do that as a $200 billion company with pretty good earnings and cash flows. And so, like, I don't know enough about the technology. I think it's very, very speculative. I think it has some use cases for, like, maybe code breaking. maybe breaking Satoshi's Bitcoin keys or something. I don't know, I've seen that floated around, but it's very niche, it seems like. So if someone can pull it off, I would say IBM, but then you have all these sort of like smaller players like Rigetti, which is 8 billion, but very speculative. They don't have any other businesses going on like IBM does. So it's pre-revenue, essentially no sales, 10 million, that's like nothing. Pretty much, yeah, like just no anything, just expectation or just hype. Now, a good analogy for this would be like, say, I talk about like dilution scams and these like small caps. Actually, the most common space that they do it in is biotechs. And you know why they do it in biotechs? Because you can be like, oh, I got this drug to cure cancer and blah, blah, blah. And it's a good story that it's sentimental and it sells and you'll get investment from that. You'll get funding for that. Your stock will get, it's easier to pump from that. And so they can, and so there's a lot of these sort of small cap biotechs that will float this. They might even have real doctors. They might even try to work on the thing, but really they're not going to do anything because they're just not well capitalized to tackle that issue with their research and development, like versus say like a Johnson & Johnson would be, like a giant incumbent that has the resources to do that. So for the most part, they tend to either be scams or they're trying and they have no chance at success. And so with quantum, that basically is, you could use the same analogy for that. All these sort of smaller companies, even in the low tens of billions to just several billion range, they're just not going to be well capitalized enough to pull this off, I think, versus say like an IBM. So again, if you're going to make a bet on quantum, I think it would be IBM, and quantum, like IBM is like 100 times the size of a lot of these companies. So I understand why there's money that flows into these sort of small mid-cap quantum stocks regardless, even if they're all pre-revenue. So we'll see. Where was this? Okay, so yeah, the deal, just to go more into the actual deal, this broke last Thursday. So yeah, it was 2 billion in grants total to 9 companies, and yeah, I think IBM took 1 billion of that, and the rest was allocated among the others. So I mean, it's not a huge amount for like an IBM, which is worth like a few hundred billion, but it's something. It shows, governments. It could be signaling for further deals, down the line. Okay, yeah, D-Wave, Rigetti got 100 million. Yeah, okay. Yeah, full sector ripped on the news. That did give a boom. So you see why Rigetti and so forth blasted like, almost 100% in recent days for this deal. There's some other ones. IonQ, I think.
Yep.
IonQ is also, it got a little pop. IonQ is bigger at 20 billion, but again, that's essentially revenue also. So yeah, I mean, in terms of short to medium term trading momentum, you're probably going to get that with these quantum names. That doesn't mean it's a great investment, or it might be a decent trade, but it's very, very, very speculative technology. And again, with pre-revenues, there's just tons of unknowns. And if you think about how many companies are trying to like do stuff here, well, picking the right one, it's like a needle in a haystack. Besides IBM, IBM pulls it off. So it's just, it's a space that as an investor, I think it's good to just stay away from regardless, even if there is some validity to it. It's too risky. Even space, I think, is, and the data center thing, that's less risky than quantum as an investment, as crazy as that sounds. Anyone else have thoughts on this before we move to the next topic? Okay. All right. That was, oh yeah. Do we want to talk about private investing and the SPV stuff? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So Anthropic is sort of, they made a point that they said that a lot of access to their private shares, they don't deem valid. They don't recognize it as legit. And so if people are holding private shares supposedly with some of these private share brokers, Anthropic claims you're not going to recognize it. Now, I think it's trickier than that. There's a lot of legal stuff that goes into that, and a lot of these firms have been around for a while. have secured shares from employees. So I think there is a big gray area, though. There are a lot of private shares type companies that are very sketch, and they do a lot of dilution or just insane management fees to the point where holding private shares is not useful, or it just would not be a good return on investment. But it really depends on who you're doing. I mean, for me, I do Forge Global. They have a really high minimum, a lot of vetting, so, and it's owned by Schwab, so it's more legit. I've looked at my terms. I'm not subject to the crazy management fees or anything like that. And so I think that's gonna be fine. But, you know, with some of these other smaller outfits, like, you know, just a few guys in New York City in an office, like I would be very like skeptical of those. We can talk about this from Claude.
Yeah, Eric, does that thing that Anthropic said that they're not like recognizing those shares, is that like really like literally anybody who bought them outside of directly being allowed by Anthropic to do it? Does that mean that everybody is voided, or does that mean that just like the weird edge cases are voided? Like if somebody bought them through an SPV, like through Forge Global properly, is that still valid?
You're asking if it's like from, like, for example, my shares,
Yeah.
they still be valid.
Like, would they void your shares if you had bought them? Like,
No, I don't think, I don't, they might claim they will, but there's too much legal red tape they have to get past just to do that. And, you know, those shares are at least bought from employees that sell it, like within their market. So some money exchange hands to get access to those shares.
Yeah.
So they are being held by Forge itself. So they have them. It's not like there's thin air. But there's other private market brokers, and who knows how they operate. They might be sort of like the dubious arena and getting short locates, where it's like a promise to get them, but not an actual, like, who knows? I don't know. I don't know the specifics, but let me see what Claude says on this. Okay, so yeah, Anthropic published a warning a couple weeks ago. It said, any sale or transfer of Anthropic stock or any interest in stock that has not been approved by our board of directors is void, will not be recognized on our books and records. Okay, so they're basically targeting these SPVs. We do not permit special purpose vehicles to acquire Anthropic stock. Any transfer of shares are void. They named names. They published a block list. They said Open Door Partners, Unicorns Exchange, Pachamama, Lionheart Ventures, Sidecar, Upmarket, and new offerings. So any new offerings on Forge Global and Hive, which are the most established ones. So, I mean, it is something that Forge is on that. Okay, so yeah, tokens in Solana claiming indirect exposure to Anthropic and OpenAI plunged almost 40% last week. All right, on that.
Eric, I just saw some news break. It's unrelated to this. The U.S. just conducted strikes in Iran just now.
Just now.
Yeah. They say it's self-defense. They struck targets in Iran near the Strait of Hormuz. There's an NBC article about it. Yeah, we can pull it up. It included missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to emplace mines. They're saying that it's not going to be any. There's not going to be any changes in the temporary ceasefire, but you know, this is just breaking right now.
So interesting. So let's see what the futures have done in the past.
This makes me wonder if the whole deal with Iran is going to be, the main challenge with that has to do with the fact that Iranians' leadership is splintered, and there are groups within Iran, within the IRGC, who can just act autonomously and continue fighting against the US and blocking ships, like in spite of a ceasefire that might occur.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm just trying to this is trying to process all this. It's just happening. All right, so I think the futures are down in the last, like, how long ago did this happen? Like
40
minutes ago?
40 minutes ago?
Yeah,
Let's see what
40
ES
an
did.
hour ago.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's still up. Like it would have tanked like I feel like 1% or so, or
Yeah.
a couple percent on this. So I think the market's just like, okay, maybe it's a
all the
self-defense thing. It really is a self-defense trade.
Poly market isn't really moving on it.
Yeah, so far the market's not, they don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Also, the Iranian negotiators came to Qatar today too, so
Okay, so yeah,
it's all happening.
And earlier today, Trump posted on Truth Social about how all the countries that are part of the peace deal should join the Abraham Accords and should sign in.
yeah, so I think the market's still like kind of just
Whatever,
looking over it. Yeah,
just another Monday.
all right. Just like, there's another shooting outside the White House, but
Right.
just, the usual.
It happens every Monday now.
All right, so yeah, we're, any more things on the private shares? Or should we move to the next topic?
I've been seeing so many scams with like pre-IPO shares and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, cause the mania of SpaceX and Anthropic is so like high right now. Anyone is just creating a site and saying, "Hey, we have pre-IPO shares."
Yeah, I saw the stupidest ad probably. I mean, CNBC is known for stupid ads, but they had an even dumber ad. Some guy who was like, just this old guy wearing like a fedora or whatever. He's like, "Oh, I'll scan this QR code and I'll tell you how to get like
No, I think I saw
SpaceX
that too,
shares."
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so basically you're gonna pay this guy some subscription or something.
Right.
And he's gonna tell you to go on Forge Global or something like that.
No, I also saw. I don't know if it was that one or something else, but this guy's like, "I'm working in this field for 30 years. I've made my money. Now I'm ready to give back."
Oh god, it's horrible. These ads are so stupid, but apparently people are falling for it because they keep making them. Yeah.
I will say after reading that guy's blog that you sent in the Discord, I feel like he's kind of sharp about it, and I feel like maybe private investing might become like the next sort of.
I mean,
the way of how crypto worked, like, might become this big thing that blows up a bunch. Everybody gets into it. Everybody figures out ways to do it, and then just sort of peters out after a while.
So I don't know if you saw this in the pre-meeting email. This is at the bottom. Like seriously, watch those videos and then read this blog. Like there's some really good content in there. So this guy, I would say, like I know I've been in some group chats with him. I'm not like buddies with him or anything. Like I have some mutual connections, but his name's Peter Toe. He's an equity day trader, much like me, and he's self-employed. He used to work at a prop firm in New York City. I know which one. And he has this crazy story and how he got into it. Everyone has a crazy story for this. But he has a really good blog where he just talks about like his background, how he got into it, all these stories of crazy trades, etc. He's since sort of branched out into private investing more. And so he has recent articles about like, private investing with some funny like drawings and stuff. But he talks about getting, SpaceX stock and then all these other names and using various brokers and how it's just this, there's a whole, it's like an underworld of pre-IPO investing or something. He talks about the whole SPV process. No, he's very dialed in. And it takes someone, if you're someone who trades for a living, like actually does it, you've been doing it for a while, like you understand financial market structures, even the valuation aspect of things and just how the whole game works. And so it makes sense that he also kind of ventures into private investing because you understand just how the hot potato pump game, it sort of is like a pump and dump in a lot of respects in that space too. And how there's sort of there's information asymmetry. There's a lot of edge you can get if you can pick the right horses because it's very liquid and, it's not trading like a stock or anything, and there's limited access. Because there's limited access and retail investors can't get in for the most part yet, there's sort of this window where you can really do well with private investments if you're picking out some good ones. For example, a recent one I think he got into was Crusoe, which is another sort of neo-cloud, sort of IREN NBIS tier data center company, but they're private. But you could have got them at like, low single digit billions, I think is recent as maybe last year. And now it's worth, I don't know, in the tens of billions, maybe over 20 billion now. So like, there's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, I recommend this blog. If you wanna dive into private investing and also just day trading and what that's like, even though that's really crazy. And so, yeah, he just articulates it so well. Like I know, he articulates it a lot better than I could on these specific things. And so definitely give that blog a read. Definitely please read those links. I know most of you don't even bother because, attention span's low, but there's a lot of value in there. Lots of value. All right, anything more on the private investments? Or should we move to the next topic? Let me see here. There's some I highlighted. God, that's Nebius and Bloom Energy. I highlight. Does anyone want to talk about that, or should we?
We can go into lightning round. People, I have like a few things.
Yeah. Oh, actually, one more thing before the lightning round. I did want to talk about Eli Lilly and their drug results. So they have this new drug. It's a new GLP-1, retrorutide, I think. And retatrutide, yeah. Okay, so over 80 weeks, patients in the study lost an average of 28.3% of their weight, or 70 pounds, versus I think the controls 2.2% for placebo. So it's obviously very effective. Roughly 45% of the 2,500 patients in phase 3 achieved 30% or more weight loss. Yeah. So this is very, very effective. I think this is an injectable, but Lilly did, I think, get a pop on this. Yeah, it's been moving. Yeah. $1 trillion company right now. Where were we? Oh yeah, this article. Okay, so I think that's about some of the best results they've had yet. So just more developments in GLP-1s, and that we can talk a bit. I kind of want to save it for the next meeting, but we can talk a bit more about just the peptides, and because those are all GLP-1 derived too, just where things are going with that. So any thoughts on this particular study, or just the whole?
They got more lenient with the regulations and everything, right?
Yep.
So that's,
yeah, with the peptides, they're opening the door, yeah. And again, we talk about like all these, it's like, is this bull market? Like we have all these catalysts, not just in these AI infrastructure names and these IPOs and SpaceX. We got potential catalysts across healthcare too. Healthcare has got some waves coming in. We have the whole demographic shifts, but then we have these GLP-1s. They keep advancing them. Combine it with AI. I just saw like there's something on Twitter about like a new AI biotech type startup, except that had some really prominent people involved or something. So it's like, okay, now AI factoring into pharma, like who knows where they could go with it, what kinds of crazy innovations we can make.
They just let mythos run free on it, just figure out some crazy. Did you see that?
Let people figure it out by taking the stuff, and if we survive and then thrive, then okay, we'll just roll with that. But yeah.
Not directly related, but I don't know if you guys saw Opus found some breakthrough in math recently. First time ever.
The Erdos problems, so there's this professor, I forget, it's spelled Erdos, but I think it's like Erdos. That's his so every math professor, like I think even my dad has like an Erdos, like everyone has, it's like a joke. It's like a number, like how many, God, this is like, what is it? Yeah, this is why I love AI. How many degrees of collaborate? It's like how many degrees, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or separation, right? It's like that type of thing. Like how many degrees of separation are you to this one mathematician? Because he was Paul Erdos, he published like so many papers, like in his career, 1,500, which is crazy high for a professor or something. And so like everyone's connected to him. But yeah, so there are 9? There are several of them that hadn't been solved yet.
Yeah.
Some of these problems. And I think, was it Claude you said?
This is with Opus too, like not even Opus 4.7 rather, 4.6 or something, which is not even, that's like, we have access to that right now. you know? And then if they let Mythos run free on
Right.
anything at this point, I mean, they're already doing it for cybersecurity. That's why they're not releasing it, because they're using Mythos to solve cybersecurity problems it's going to create. And they're trying to patch those before they release it fully. And if they just let that happen for anything else, like any company that is able to use that is gonna go crazy. Deeply unsolved problems like healthcare, et cetera.
Yeah, so here's one story from a guy, Donald Nutt, Stanford CS guy, okay, and then he had been a longtime AI skeptic, and then in March 2026, he released a paper called Claude Cycles, and he actually credited Opus 4.6 with solving an open graph theory problem, okay, and then, yeah, so now that completely changed his stance on AI, and then, yeah, Claude has gone on to solve some of these air-dish problems. Oh, it was not Opus, okay. OpenAI on May 20th announced an internal reasoning model independently disproved a major unsolved conjecture in discrete geometry. Okay, yeah, there's some crazy math that hasn't been solved yet, but I don't know what the application is anyway. Okay, so it had been unsolved. It was posed by him in 1946. It had been unsolved for 80 years. And then it got proven mathematically. So there you go, like by OpenAI. So these LLMs are doing some crazy things. And so it makes you wonder, I guess now, is math and some of these like things we thought, math and physics and all these kinds of crazy STEM fields, are they just going to be commoditized now by AI? So being an expert in that stuff is not going to be useful, or maybe they can go crazier with it. I don't know. Depends, but yeah, that's insane. And so obviously, I don't know the direct effects of that, but the fact that they can do that successfully is just like, okay, well, to all the people that we're talking about, like AI is not going to help me with this. I don't know. Maybe it can actually do it for you, like some kind of crazy problem or issue you're working on, and maybe AI can actually do a better job than a human can. And that lends into the whole like AGI, ASI debate. Are we in AGI? I think you said it was like a gradient, and we might be moving into it now. Yeah, I think to certain degrees, like stuff like this, yeah, we kind of are getting there. So no, it's just, again, goes with the whole compute scaling curves and how insanely exponential they are so far. Again, I recommend everyone watch those Gavin Baker interview videos. Like, please do. It's a lot to process. Just watch it like 50 million times over and take notes on it, and then you'll get it down. But if you understand the scaling in AI infrastructure, you will understand the market for the next couple decades going forward. I really do believe that. Like that, this is what we have to pay attention to. Everything starts with that. Okay, so now do we want to move into the lightning round? Okay, who's got stocks they want to, I got some I want to bring up, but who's got some, anyone want to go? Yep.
A big one I wanted to talk about was USAR and potential alternatives. So a big geopolitical movement that's been going on right now is the Trump administration specifically wants to bring rare earth related companies into the Western Hemisphere, so we're not as dependent on China specifically.
Yeah.
We had like a $1.7 billion deal between USAR and the Trump administration. And I think there were some smaller deals they've done with other companies in the industry. And I just think it's a big thing we should talk about, because right now we're almost solely dependent on China for most of our rare earth materials.
Hold on, Claude accidentally took USAR to USAR or something, like it started talking to me about the math stuff in Spanish. So. Okay, so there's some things AI can't get.
To be fair, you don't talk to it in complete sentences.
Right.
So.
Do this.
It's doing its best.
Yeah, so the government wants to accelerate the rare earth capabilities, and obviously rare earths are another bottleneck involved in the whole AI, et cetera, build out. So with this, let's see. CHIPS Act money, okay. they did a raise, okay, they got 1.5 billion, okay, from a private placement, okay. All right, so it's very speculative, obviously. Like, this is, yeah, it's a pre-revenue company, 7 million revenue. So I would say this hasn't really done much yet in terms of, well, it's done some money. But like, I think, yeah, if we're gonna look at the next sort of bottlenecks to play, seems like rare earths hasn't really caught fire too much. I don't know what the ceiling is for that or how much they can go, but like, it's a mid-cap size. So just on like, if you think about from a trading momentum theme perspective, I mean, that thing can really, it could probably go, it could be like a, you know, multi-bagger within a few years, given this administration too, right? At least into 2028. No, it's got some run potential, that's for sure. Do I actually believe in the specific company, or do like, who knows with these, right?
Yeah.
Commodity based, but everything lines up. Everything is there for the tailwinds for sure.
Yeah, my question's more about the general rare earth market, and if you think it will be something that's moving into the Western Hemisphere. One thing, I think it might be interesting to ask Claude to compare it to companies in the Eastern Hemisphere that are in rare earth right now. Like, how big are they? How big of a deal is it?
But it's interesting, they'd have to compete with a lot of developments in Central Asia with rare earth mining, because it said that countries around Afghanistan have some of the most rare earth metals in the world that have been, you know, essentially untapped. So it'd be in direct competition with that, at least. But with government headwinds, it's definitely considering.
Let's see, I told it to make a table here, so we can look at it. Okay, yeah, and the Eastern Hemisphere has 90% of the mining share. Okay, even by 2030, it's supposed to come down, but it's still gonna be like near 70%. So they're gonna dominate that. I wonder if there's any special little, you know, Kazakhstan mining plays we can get into. Right? Look at the, you know, other markets here, but all right. Yeah, so they just got more. They got more in terms of everything. Mining operations and just more abundance over there. And that's definitely gonna be an issue going forward, probably because these are essential in the AI infrastructure build-outs. And so China, that could be something that comes into play for them, you know, and maybe they can hold the US hostage over some of this type of stuff, you know, and sort of slow that US growth ahead of them and catch up with this sort of play. So no, this is gonna be something to focus on. Should we dive into maybe what are some Chinese or like, you know, Eastern Hemisphere? Yeah. Some publicly traded. All right, let's see what it says. Okay, so a lot of these are trading on like the Chinese or Japan exchange. All right, but yeah, 28.7 billion China Northern Rare Earth. That's their market cap, equivalent USD, with a revenue of 5.78 billion. Okay, so that's up 134% over the past year. Okay. There's a big Japanese metals, Sumitomo in there, okay, at, what is that, I don't know, yen, 1.3 trillion, okay, that's much bigger, maybe more Chinese, lots of Chinese state-linked, okay, lots of producers here, okay. They're all trading in those exchanges though, so as far as access to it, yeah, probably gonna have to just, unless you got some like international broker, USAR is probably still a play on this. I think the whole space is bound to grow. So, yeah, I think it's, I would be very bullish on the space. I'm usually not a fan of like commodity-based companies, but this whole AI wave has just shifted everything. So now it's like, oh, well, now commodities and commodity-based companies are the play in a lot of ways for at least several years, could be. So I would say as a trade, I would call it like a medium-term, long-term trade, or you could call it a short-term investment. I think there's legs to USAR. Just know that it's pre-revenue, and so it's very sentiment-based regardless. Just got to pay attention probably to all the news headlines, especially surrounding mining. But it seems like there's just lots and lots and lots of potential tailwinds here. So I think that's a pretty solid one. Any others people want to bring up to this lightning round?
Yeah, I'll bring up NetApp, so NTAP, and then we'll go to Dell in a second because they're kind of competitors in the same space.
That's popped.
Yeah, so I've owned this for a while. Originally, because it was just kind of a more boring tech company with great fundamentals, generated a ton of cash. So it kind of falls into that, like, I don't know, just like a less volatile company to own. It's not going to do anything crazy, but obviously with AI as a tailwind, they've been huge beneficiaries. They're essentially on the storage side of that build out, specifically like kind of bridging that gap between like the data center infrastructure and then the people who are actually using like the GPUs, right? So essentially providing them with like providing the GPUs with the actual data that they use to then do things. I've owned this for a while again, and it's done well. But then I started looking into some of the competitors, Dell being one that's absolutely crushed year to date. I think it's up over 100%. And just, I know we talk about vertical integration. So obviously Dell has that hardware component as well that's part of what they offer. NetApp doesn't have that. So I just kind of wanted to see if anyone else has bought anything in this kind of space, if anyone owns Dell. I'm considering changing, like swapping out the positions. I think the only thing that has me hesitant is that recently there's been a bunch of rumors that NetApp could get acquired. So I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to sell, if any of that actually ends up materializing. I think it could get a nice, even more of a pop, even though it's already gotten a bit of that post earnings. But yeah, just general thoughts, I guess, on this kind of less talked about aspect of the AI build out.
Well, it looks like the market's recognizing this aspect.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's a matter of how much longer are you going to get this type of.
Yeah. Well, I kind of put it where it's like, like if you look at like the semis, like NVIDIA, they've been ripping for a while. And if you go back like 12, 14-ish months, obviously the memory stock started doing that. So it seems like this is more earlier, I should say, in its kind of like being recognized by the market, given that it really didn't do anything last year. And it's more so year to date that these names have started to pump up a bit.
Yeah, so Dell's been around longer, much bigger. I think. Yeah, so let's see what Claude says on this. Claims it's a thin margin business, so that is a risk. But if demand's there,
Yeah.
Demand's there, it's gonna make lots of money regardless.
A big part of that thin margin too is just because they're kind of at the whims of the actual cost of memory.
Yeah.
So like, right, their inputs would come from like the Microns and the SK Hynixes of the world and the Samsung. So, if there's shortages there and the cost of that shoots up, it definitely bites into their bottom line. Although I think one of the reasons Dell and NetApp have just soared year to date is because that hasn't really been reflected in their earnings, especially after their most recent ones here at the end of Q1.
I mean, if we're going by traditional value metrics though, I mean, they're quite.
Yeah, well, that's why I've owned it for so long. It just on paper looks amazing. It's always kind of fit into that screen of reasonable value.
I saw an interesting, and I gotta dive into this more, but I just saw like a tweet where it was like, over the last, I don't know what it was it quarter or something? It was like a few months, but the S&P went up, but the price to earnings ratio or whatever it was, or something like, or the earnings, actually it went like down more. Like the earnings actually are surpassing like the market growth or something in recent months, which is crazy. So the market should be like shooting up a lot higher, really. And from some of these companies making money hand over fist. I mean, these are components of the S&P 500. So yeah, they are making money from that. But again, I think it's also a question of, well, the market's in wait and see mode. I would be more confident personally, but just it's coming from all the CapEx spend.
Yeah.
It's downstream from all those Mag 7 big techs, you know, like they are the ones spending lots of money hand over fist to pay them. And again, we haven't realized the value from that yet, but the market is expecting a good value boost from that yet. So I think, yeah, but again, it's a bottleneck play, NetApp and Dell, just like with the neoclouds.
Yep.
So I think they're in a good position to benefit from this. That's where you really focus on. And I think that the whole Aschenbrenner manifesto, I mean, he talks about the bottlenecks. There's going to be opportunities in the bottlenecks in AI. That's where you focus on.
Yeah. I think I've also thought of it too, is just like I own like a few of like these kind of memory names, and I even own that like memory ETF just to get exposure to that.
DRAM?
Yeah. So as that kind of starts to top, I think that becomes a catalyst for these data storage plays, you know, because like they're already printing out these great numbers, right. And as their inputs, right, their costs start going down because memory starts to normalize. Yep. I feel like those names will only continue to do well.
Right.
So kind of playing both sides is how I thought about it.
Happened, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and actually, Gavin Baker in those interviews says he thinks the memory trade is largely passed. As in, he's not bearish on it. He just thinks that you talk about DRAM or Micron, SanDisk, like that, you're definitely not getting that type of gain movement going forward. Like it's already run its course, and memory prices are bound to sort of stabilize. So yeah, that's a good positioning, it sounds like, with NTAP and Dell. Anyone else with stocks they want to bring up?
Take two.
Yeah.
GTA 6 coming out, but I don't know how much it could push the stock.
So Take-Two is a $42 billion company. I mean, GTA is...
I think it's going to be the biggest game release in history, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's going to be huge. Like,
it's going to be huge.
Who plays Grand Theft Auto or has? I mean, we've all played it, but like, who actively plays it right now?
No.
Yeah.
For the next one.
Well, I'm sure like for people who play it, yeah, they have their whole ecosystem. People are talking about how speculation is that you'll be able to make lots of money within Grand Theft, like just how people make money in like Roblox or something. Like, so you make money in Roblox, you can make money in GTA, you know. You can make money robbing people like in GTA. I know. But no, they're gonna invent. Didn't they have like a stock market in GTA or something?
Yes.
Imagine doing something where, yeah. So who knows? But
imagine they added their own crypto system.
Yeah, it's gonna be an addictive ecosystem that will lock people in, and with how microtransactions are. And I know this from having played NBA 2K, especially as a notorious NBA 2K PC hacker who's been banned a million times. But, you know, in NBA 2K, though, part of my incentive for hacking in the first place was, you know, those stupid microtransactions. Boy, it's like, why not? So, you know, that's going to be a money gainer for them. Let's see what Claude actually says on this. Okay, so it thinks revenue wise, like for 2027, about 8 billion. For Take-Two. Okay, and then there's all these sort of like other companies that would benefit, like just from the distribution aspect and all this other stuff. But 8 billion for Take-Two. Seems like, okay, so.
In the first 60 days, which is crazy.
Actually, those.
$80 per game.
So that would be, I mean, that's like, okay, so 8 billion in revenue.
I heard they were throwing around $100 per game.
Revenue in the past 12 months was 6 to 7 billion. So, I mean, no, GTA is going to be a huge part. I mean, GTA is a big chunk of them. So, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's all going to be like how many. It has to. It's like kind of like making a big budget movie, right? It's like it's going to be the most expensive movie ever made, and then it has to be the best selling movie ever made. But then it turns out to do that, like those James Cameron Avatar movies or whatever it is. So this is kind of like a version of that. Like it needs to be the biggest video game ever. Like it has to be. Like that's the baseline it's going off of. So I think it will be hugely successful. How long have they been working on this thing?
For years.
Yeah.
For years.
Like over a decade or almost a decade.
Yeah, I think since they dropped GTA 5 or something like that.
So it's got to be huge, and I'm sure they've done a good job with it. But video game companies are like, as an investment, I think this is good for Take-Two. And I actually posted an interview with the Take-Two CEO too. He's an example of a good operator. Like he knows his stuff. Video game industry, and I think Take-Two is going to be successful individually, but the video game industry as a whole, it's like retail. It's so difficult. Like you just have to keep reinventing the wheel and then figuring out how to grow like existing games. And then people can just immediately, it's like games come in and out of favor too, right? People just, their taste will shift over time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just such a tough environment. It's such a tough business to invest in. But I do think Take-Two is, I think, solidly bullish. I mean, this thing has grown steadily.
What do you think about the VR space and that like kind of AR, like Oculus?
That's another play with the whole. I know the metaverse was officially shut down by Meta, but like I wouldn't say it's necessarily a failure because they still have a lot of like stuff going on with the AR VR things they're working on. So I think that's still wait and see. We may have talked about it in one of the earliest meetings, but it's pretty speculative. Does anyone have like AR VR stuff they're using actively? Okay. Does anyone have stuff they've had in the past? Like
that looks like Snapchat as filters. Like that's the most exposure that people have.
Yeah, I have an Oculus.
Yeah, like I have an Oculus. I never use it. Like, I use it for like fun. Like I played the boxing game. That was fun, but then eventually you just get bored. Like,
It hurts your head too.
And your eyes, I bet.
Yeah, so
I think it's more useful at like an enterprise commercial level than it is at a consumer level.
Yeah.
Because like construction companies use augmented reality and through LiDAR scanning and stuff like that.
Right.
Has expedited their.
Right. So if their tech gets good to the point where it's like, oh, this has commercial use for something else, and I think Anduril has had some recent releases or demos of like a headset thing for like the military type, some type of VR, AR, some AR thing for that. So there could be use cases for that, like equipping AR with like soldiers and stuff like that. Drone, yes. Yes, all kinds of applications for it. So that would be the play.
Are
If anything.
Are they doing that now?
Yeah, I think they're actively working on it. Now, investing wise, well, Meta's would be the consumer one. Well, Anduril's not public yet. Are there, I mean, people have talked about what? Swarmer, that's a drone one. Like, also, not to segue too much, but I saw a whole bull case for AeroVironment, AVAV, like they're like a relative bottom too. And there might be some, and if Anduril starts getting some tailwinds or some hype going into the IPO, maybe anything drone could start going up, much like how Rocket Lab started running was SpaceX anticipation. It's like AV could start going with Anduril anticipation, you know, older drone player. So something to watch there too. So again, speculative, very, very speculative tech. Like I would throw it in it's not quite, there's degrees to it, but it's kind of like eVTOL or some of these other concepts. It's there, it's probably coming to a certain extent. I don't know how big it's gonna get, but if you invest in it, it's like, well, like it's speculative. So just know your risk, high reward. So yeah. Any other companies for the lightning round? I got some I want to bring up. Actually, this is kind of me and Al found this one. Ambarella. Al, do you want to dive into Ambarella or give a?
It's been a while since I looked at it, but
Okay.
they basically do, this is a play on the Aschenbrenner thesis, you know? Like, don't we all wish we could have bought SanDisk and Micron a year ago? But we bought those, you should have bought those if you read the Aschenbrenner thesis and you listened to it. So the Aschenbrenner thesis continues further on afterwards, after that, into robotics pretty soon after what's going on right now. And most people don't think that robotics is that close. They think at 3 to 5 years. This play is on it coming up pretty close based off the thesis. And what AMBA does is they're like the ones that are American made. They have a very good hold on the market in regard to cameras on robots because they need special certain cameras. And Ambra is a play on that. There's a few other ones, but we like Ambra the most because they have a very good, it fits the screeners.
Founder CEO, his name is Fermi. Well, it's like it's a play on words. I don't think this is his actual name, but it's just Fermi. It's another thing with semis, and it's a mid-cap size. You know, it's like 3 to 4 billion in market cap, which is about as small as you want to go for something that would have legitimacy down the line as a long-term player. But I'm like, okay, this could be like something crazy. Like this could be like a 50 bagger type stock in a very, just a few year time frame. If the robotics theme starts catching fire, which I think it will,
Also kind of has to, I feel like.
Yeah,
especially with
inevitable.
demographics and everything like that. And China's already doing it.
China's pushing for it, so we're going to push for it. Elon's going to push for it. We start sending humanoids to the moon, right, to build those data centers. Who knows how crazy this gets? So AMBA's, just in terms of relative size, bottleneck, robotics, yeah.
I think it's going to come a lot closer because in 10 years, sure, this stock will go up.
It can go ballistic.
Exactly.
It can go ballistic in 2 years.
Everybody thought that AI is going to take like 5 years, 10 years to get to the level it is now. It's been like a year.
Yeah. I almost want to just buy this for the freaking portfolio. But
should look at some of the other ones.
Well, if we have open door, why not that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 2 others I wanted to bring up.
Well, here, what do people think about that thesis then?
AMBA, yeah. What are thoughts on AMBA and robotics? Potential waves.
I think it's worth it, but we shouldn't be trying to find the winner. Maybe diversifying across a couple of them. I know Symbiotic is another big one.
Right. Symbiotic is.
Oh, I own that.
32 billion in market cap. Definitely speculative. Not pre-revenue. We got some revenue. They've been around. I think weren't they doing something with Walmart or something? I don't know.
They do have a deal for like the logistics for Walmart.
So a more incumbent type player in this, you're not going to get the growth potential stock wise of an AMBA, but it's much less speculative.
Right.
And so it's a safer bet. I would not that safe, but it's safer. And then there's also, if you want to go medical, there's Intuitive Surgical, which we talked about before, which we do have in the portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
I'm very bullish on this one.
Yeah.
I think, especially like, these names that fall into like industrials or even healthcare, they're in a similar spot where they're in the second wave of beneficiaries of AI, and that's just too far out for the market. Like they want anyone who's benefiting in like wave 1, and that's what's been pumping. And that's why like names like this, Axon's another example where I think AI is extremely beneficial to their business. Like if you're an industrials name that's not tied to data centers directly, like you're just not going to be able to trade, 50, 60, 70 times earnings. The market's not going to let you do that right now.
Yeah.
So, but I think these names, will come back into favor just given that fundamentally,
Yep.
I mean, they're just cash machines. They're dominant in their respective industries. And I mean, this one trades a little bit more expensive than
But there's bounce back potential for sure. We just gotta see.
Yeah.
Axon is also in our portfolio. So yeah, just gotta stay patient with it.
Yeah.
I got two I want to bring up. One real briefly, one more in depth. One is BMRN. That was because ASL was doing the TIG open claw on that, and then I actually told her, yeah, I'm going to bring this up at the meeting if you're not going to be there. So she said she wouldn't be there, so I'm going to be here. I bring it up because I'm just like, look at this freaking thing. It's a cash cow, like 10 billion market cap, forward PE of 8, like great cash flow, great everything, no debts. Healthcare waves gonna catch on. So they do peptides as well, and they have one that's like, I think in a trial, but like it's not the GLP-1 derivative one, but it's still one for like muscle skeletal stuff that could have a large total addressable market. So just as a incredible cash cow stock in a space that's primed to get like a boom with something down the pipeline with a good TAM, I'm like, well, you got a lot of tailwinds on this thing. So that's a pretty solid one. The one I really want to talk about most though, ENHA, Enhanced Group. Enhanced Games. I was watching the stream of the Enhanced Games yesterday. That was very interesting. It actually froze for 10 minutes to start off. Not a good look, but like I said, it's like an episode of Silicon Valley. Like, if anyone's seen that show, it's just like that. But so ENHA is, they were a SPAC, they did their IPO. They've crashed from that $10 floor that they set on SPACs, with a whole nother rabbit hole for that, but they've crashed and now it's like a $5 stock. Market cap's 655 billion or million right now. So it's been hit hard. And Enhanced Games, it's like, this is like sort of Peter Thiel's, it's one of Peter Thiel's investments. I think it's also backed by Trump Jr. So it's got like the deregulation and the connections aspect. And it just, to go with the timing on like the peptide deregulation and all that, it's like you can see the floodgates are open for this thing, which the real goal is not just to have these like sports where everyone's juiced on drugs to compete in. They did break one world record in swimming yesterday. Well, it's not an official one, but a juice one. But it's to market for like peptides and enhancers and stuff like that. And so they were smart. They got that. I don't know if you've seen that crazy guy, Brian Johnson, the anti-aging dude. Like he's a lunatic. He was there at the games doing commentary with like an umbrella to protect himself from the sun. It's so ridiculous. Like, and everyone's like talking all kinds of shit. I'm like, look, it's gonna sell because it's like the more they talk about it, the more they feed into it. So just from an investing perspective, straight up being objective about it, it's like, well, that's what the company wants. It's gonna work for them. And so, yeah, this is ridiculous. They got all these athletes, kind of like Olympians, but like maybe past their prime, not quite like in their peaks.
I heard most of them were pretty washed up.
Most of them are washed up. So even with enhancements and drugs, you're just not gonna like threaten the world record. Because to break a world record, you got to be like in top form, regardless. Like, but yeah, what were you saying?
Well, I was gonna say, did you look into that swimmer, that one who wasn't enhanced? Is that what it was? That article I sent you? Okay.
It was like a slower event. But yeah, that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
They were basically, I mean, people were like really roasting on it until like the very last event, which was another swimming event. I think it was a 50 freestyle. I think they knew that was the event with the best chance at it happening. So they saved that for last. And then the guy broke it by like 0.07 seconds, which is I mean, it's a short race. It's not like a ton, but it's like, okay, that's I mean, the fact that you get a record, that's significant. And of course, because of that, now they can just market the hell out of that and make it go viral. And apparently, I think they invited a bunch of streamers or something to their thing to like do their streams. And you know, as silly as it is, it's like, well, it's gonna sell. It's gonna sell for them. So I don't know when they're gonna have the next competition though. It might be like a year from now. That would be a little ridiculous. But I feel like they could just keep running these and like, okay, here's the thing. So it's sort of like, you think about it, like Live Golf, right? Live Golf tried to sort of like disrupt the PGA and just threw crazy money at these golfers, right? Like hundreds of millions, even like $1 billion if you're like Phil Mickelson, or was it? He got 900 million, Tiger Woods, whatever. He didn't join, but still. Enhanced Games, they're offering $250K to like the winner of each event, you know? And then 1 million if you break the world record, which it's really not that much. If you're comparing it to something like Live, it doesn't take much. And then you think about sports, like for me, because I used to run like track and field and swimming are like non-revenue sports. They're just, you know, they're not like basketball, baseball, football, where you can sell tickets. Like people are only going to really watch those sports when the Olympics come around, right? And so they do have professional like leagues for it. I don't know about swimming, but I know track does, but there's just not much money in it. Like if you're not like top 10 in some event, you're basically going to work a part-time job, you know, and you might have a shoe contract and you're going to work some kind of part-time job to support yourself. Like it's that, there's just no money there. And so for this, it's like, well, $250K to win an event, like that's already enough incentive for those kinds of sports, you know? And so like, I think track has kind of messed up in that they haven't embraced gambling when they could have. Like if they did, then there would be so much more money for the athletes and like I know there's like all kinds of other issues that come with gambling, but the positives would outweigh the negatives, especially, you know, financially. And so with the enhanced games, I mean, no, you could already bet on these in Polymarket. Like, and so it's like they're just going to dive right in and embrace all this stuff, and just because they're willing to just sort of break rules, the moral rules. But like, there's no law, like really. I mean, there are laws for like within competition, like in the Olympics, but for them, it's like, no, it's like they'll do everything that's legal, and you know, they're monitoring these athletes with doctors. It's like, I think it's kind of ridiculous and over the top, yes, but if we're just talking about stock go up, the fuel is there for stock go up. That's it. You can make all the moral arguments you want, like, yeah, and I agree with a lot of the moral arguments, but I'm just saying, stock go up, all the fuel is there. You got your Peter Thiel connection, you got Trump involved, you got like, it's so over the top ridiculous that, you know, they're playing it to the max. So they're just hacking sports, even though these games, I would say overall were I would say probably a disappointment, but the fact that they got, what?
It's their first one.
It's their first one, yeah. Nowhere to go but up and learn from it, especially if you get funding from like Thiel, like you'll be able to put on more competitions and you know, do more with it. So like, this is not something I would bet against at this point. Now that it's been beaten down so much, I'm like, well, I'm definitely going to buy some tomorrow, just as a speculative bet. Sort of like I see it. I think I told Victor, I'm like, I see this like SPAC mania, right? 2021.
Yeah.
You could buy any stupid thing like Lucid, you know, it would go up like, you know, several X. And so I'm like, that's how I'm playing ENHA, sort of like a tailwinds pump hype thing. Like, do I believe in this like 10 years from now? I don't know. I'm not going to make that prediction. Don't need to make that prediction at all anyway. Just play it as like a short-term investment on tailwind hype and deregulatory hype into maybe the next election cycle. Because then if another administration takes over, like if that's when, then they'll probably try to, you know,
hammer down on that.
Hammer down on this. So at least just from that perspective as an investor, like ignore all the moral arguments. And I would just say that you see from that perspective, stock go up, you know, within 1-2 years. And then beyond that, who knows and who cares? But yeah, good risk reward there from an investment perspective. anything else, or should we just wrap it up? It's 8:15, so. There's a monster at the door. All right, yeah, I think that's good. Let's call it. All right, thank you for coming. No dinner or drinks afterwards because everything's closed, so, you know, thanks. We'll just head out.
Thanks to everyone online too.